Hello, welcome back to round 2 of the Battle of Copenhagen TTS live event. I'm your host, Rob, and I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Vince Venturella. Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm good, buddy. How you doing?
Oh, very excited to have you on the stream. I don't think we got to commentate together when we did this last time in CanCon. I don't think that was the situation. So, very excited for you and me getting to chill and just talk about some Warhams, which is going to be fun.
Yeah, there's 3 of us on stream today, as you can see. So no, it's going to be a good time. A very good time. I am excited. Yes, I was very sad we didn't get to do a game, but I am stoked for this one. This is going to be a weird and fun game.
Very weird. Very weird. Because polar opposites for you guys watching at home. We have got Daughters of Cain, brand new powerhouse that is in Age of Sigmar, new book, played by probably one of the aficionados, if not the Daughters of Cain aficionado, Mr. Benjamin Sava, against Beasts of Chaos. Now, on TTS, Vince, they're running a great win percentage, 55% win rate. But generally, you've just come off the back of doing a good long show on Wednesday about what needs to be fixed about them. How do you rate their chances in this?
Poor.
Poor to middling, or just poor?
I believe I've said my piece. Yeah, look, I appreciate that the 7 games they got amounted to in TTS amounted to a higher win rate. I question statistical significance of that particular data segmentation. But I'm happy that the 2 players who were playing them a lot were, doing decently well with them. This is a tough matchup. Like, as you mentioned, we'll get into the list in a minute, but as you mentioned, you can, there are ways to win with Beast. It's not like it's not like you're dead on arrival or something, right? It's just a tough matchup for Beast for most armies. And if it wasn't against Doc, what I think is currently one of the top 5 most powerful armies in the meta right now, if it wasn't against a player that I think is, actually maybe one of the best players of Doc in the world, I would rate the chances of the Beast player a little higher. But you know what? I hope to be surprised. That's what I'll say. I want to be surprised in this game, Rob.
Yeah, and thank you again. If we all take a moment to thank Vince for getting up early to do this, it's massively appreciated. So looking forward to it a lot. Let's cut to the table now, and then you guys can see what we're looking at. So we're just talking about the battle plan real quick. Total conquest, 4 objectives you can see on the map. You can see the deployment zones marked out quite clearly. Those 4 objectives, they're worth a point each. Unless you take them off your opponent, you get a bonus point. And if you do it with a leader, another bonus point. So lots to play for. 2 of those are out there in no man's land. So you've got some real great opportunities to use some Trader Joe's. That's my current nickname, Vince, for units that you trade off with. Light little 5-man skirmish units. It's probably not going to stick, but it's just for this week. That's what I'm saying.
It's fine. They have some. I think everybody likes their peanut butter something, popcorn or something. I don't know. It's like a Whole Foods place. It's a place I don't wander into. So
you should never, because you never want to mix in with the trading unit, basically, because they want you to trade off on those objectives. But we'll see more of this. One of the interesting conversations that came up from the last battle, Vince, was the issue of some armies needing DPS checks. We just saw 45 Blight Kings, and the Metrica list it was up against just didn't have the output to even go through it. We talked about that quality, and there are a couple of lists at this Battle of Copenhagen. So this is round 2. There are 50 players playing 25 matches right now in the 2-day event. So there's a round after this, and there's 2 rounds tomorrow. One of the things we talked about was DPS checks, and that there being that a lot of Age of Sigmar at the minute seems to be very, very min unit size or like MSU. And I think that really ties into this story that we're about to see, where it's 2 MSU-ish armies battling out against each other with loads of different tools. So Benjamin's army, his Daughters of Cain army, which you can see deploying in the bottom right, is a Daughters of Cain army in Temple Hagnar. So don't forget, it's going to get that bonus to its DPR save coming from the command trait. It's also
though honestly, Rob, that's the less important thing in Ben's list. I honestly do think.
What? Oh, okay. That's fascinating. I'll fly through the list and I'll get your thoughts on it. So there's a Bloodrak Shrine who's the general, and that's got Mind Razor on, which I think is important. There's a Hag Queen on Cauldron of Blood. There's a Bloodrak Medusa, and the Bloodrak Medusa has got Mirror Dance. And then there's Morgweath the Bloodied, which we'll see in every Daughters of Cain list because it's just super cheap. And then there's another Slaughter Queen. So a lot of characters in this list. 3 units of 5 Bloodstalkers as the battle line. Then there was the 2 units of 18 Cainite Shadow Stonkers, so the Shadow Stalkers, and 2 units of Life Takers, and 2 Avatars of Cain, and an extra command point. Vince, talk to me about the list. How do you feel about it? What do you think of it?
I love everything about Ben's list. Let me just start here. As usual, the madman himself has brought us something very interesting. Okay, so let's break this down, Rob, because there's a lot going on here. Like, one, we cannot talk about this list and not mention the lack of the queen herself, right? Mm-hmm. Of the Shadow Queen being here. No Marathi, right? That's number 1. Okay.
It's so important because when you do put Marathi in, you put Marathi in, you're like, well, I'm going to use that command ability, and who am I stacking it on? And then you're taking another unit that you're like maxing out in some situations, and then like it almost writes itself. So as soon as you take Marathi out, then you get something like this, which is wild and wonderful, right?
Yeah, correct. So he suddenly, right, has all this extra space to deal with, right? Which is incredible. I think Ben's list is missing a piece of data because I don't know what he's got some kind of he has a battalion, but I don't think he wrote it down on the list. But I don't know. I would be interested to know what battalion he actually has. It's not on the list I see, but he has 2 artifacts, and I don't know. He has, so he should. There you go.
Well, ask Matt. Matt, if you could just get back to us on that'd be great. But yeah.
So the thing about Matt's list, or sorry, about Ben's list, I apologize, that's interesting, is that
we'll come back to it. We'll circle back to it.
That's right. The thing about Ben's list is interesting is it is very MSU, as you mentioned. So it's got all these different, it's got all the little Bloodstalkers. His actual biggest units are his 18 blocks of the Shadow Stalkers, right? The teleporting hit squad, which is what they're going to play as here. Things of note, he does not have Catechism of Murder, like everybody's favorite prayer. Okay?
He does not. You are correct.
Yes, Catechism is the one that lets you normally double tap on 6s, right? He does have Crimson Rejuvenation, a prayer I am a big fan of and almost always fit in my list. It's a heal, okay? So a very unusual green bar you can hit in Daughters of Cain. He's going to use it, obviously, to heal his shrines, right? Because he wants to keep the shrine running at maximum power.
Of course.
He has like an incredible amount of hitting power if anything gets charged up here. So let's just quickly go understand that, like, yes, the Shadow Stalkers can teleport, but they don't actually need to. What I mean by that is those 18 Shadow Stalkers or the 5 Life Takers, if either of those gets buffed with the prayers and or drops a Mind Razor, they're going to explode whatever they touch. So the average damage against a 4-up save out of 5 Canary Life Takers is something like 27.
They're going to do a lot of work
on the charge.
Yeah, really good. They're like a missile in of themselves, right? Like a little spear that you throw at someone.
Yes, I mean, like, I really want to bring that home for everybody. That's an 80-point unit that is 5 wounds. That if it hits and gets to activate first, will average between 25 and 27 damage. I really internalize what I just said. That is bonkers numbers.
Really good. Okay. Especially when we saw Alvanor in the last game go up against some Blight Kings and do 0 damage. An average of 25 is significantly different to 0. I mean, that wasn't the average, but the average of even Alvanor is much, much cheaper versus the 80 points of Life Takers.
Yeah, I mean, it's so beyond the pale of what units should do on damage, to be completely honest. Like, it is nutso. So, anyways, that's number one. And then the Shadow Stalkers are just basically better Witch Elves in this scenario. Okay.
Mm. Yeah,
And
they definitely
so
are.
because they're basically better Witch Elves with a shooting attack, right? And so, they're going to get in and do the work. I mean, again, their average damage, if they get all the buffs, is nuts. He has 4 delivery mechanisms for his buff parade, right? In the 2 units of 18 Shadow Stalkers and the 2 Life Takers. Okay. Which is amazing. Now, the 5 and 5 and 5 Bloodstalkers, what are they there for? The answer's simple. They're there to actually be like kind of chaff or kind of just shoot what needs to be shot, right? He can just put all 15 into something, remove a problem, or he can just be like, yeah, get in the way. They're just a little mobile thing. They're not his game plan. They're not his strat. They're his sauce on top, right? Most armies would consider them quintessential. He's like, nah. Uh, and can we talk about the incredible wonder, Rob, that this has 2 avatars of Cain,
On
2
foot.
on foot
On foot.
avatars of Cain,
And loads to break down about this list still, I think. There's loads you could deep dive. You could do a whole show on this list, absolutely. Just to quickly fire off what's happening now as we see the Beast of Chaos, Blagan playing the Beast of Chaos, and I'll fire through what's in his list, and we'll talk about in depth as the show goes on. He's got an all-herd list with a Great Bray Shaman, who's the general, a Zangor Shaman, and a Dragon Ogre Shaggoth. It's a unit of 10 Bestigors and then 3 units of 10 Ungors. You have 2 units of 6 Enlightened, which you can see there on disc, and another unit of 3, and then 5 Santagors, all in the Phantasmagoria of Fate. He's bought a command point. He's got Geminids, of course. And the Beasts of Chaos are taking the first turn. They're taking the first turn, and this is the board as we see it. As you can see, Benjamin using his Shadow Stonkers at the back of the board, I think, which is a bit of a smart play, because that early door summoning that you can get out of a Beast of Chaos army is pretty massive. Now, I know you've done a deep dive on the Beast of Chaos recently, Vince. I would say that one of the things that we rarely talk about when you talk about Beast of Chaos in isolation is just how impactful and useful that Herdstone is on the game and how much it can affect it. In this particular battle plan, maybe not so much, but it's going to cover 2 objectives very quickly, and that -1 save, I think, could become really effective very, very quickly.
Yeah, we're starting out with a range of 6 inches, then it's going to go to 12 in round 2 and then 18 in round 3. So, it depends on, you could still easily be out of it and on the second objective in round 2, but you're right. By round 3, it would be impactful if the enemy wasn't in Hagnar, where they're relying on an after save and Blessing of Cain, and they don't, and they had a thing broadcasting +1 to armor save. So, like, it's well positioned to go, meh, okay, I'm neg 1 armor save. Like,
how do you feel about tanking? Literally tanking with an Avatar of Cain. He's pretty bold.
I love it that they're out there. He's offering it up if the enemy wants to come get him, right? Because he's got 2 of them there. And remember, the important part about the Avatar on foot right now is that they add +1 to prayer rolls, right? In this big radius around them. So he's using that to like juice, because he's got 3 different prayers. What I find fascinating about the Beast Force, since I've been only talking about Doc, I do like it quite a bit. I love, the classic Ungor chaff, good stuff, no issue there. Not a bodies to win build, right? Wound count in the beast list is 131. Actually, fairly low for a beast list. And as a matter of fact, the daughters list has 140 wounds. So we've got a beasts player getting out wounded and out modeled, like count, by daughters, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that he chose to take the first turn, especially in this battle plan. If you want my honest opinion, Rob, I'm generally not a person who ever takes first turn anyways. Like, I'm very anti taking the first turn. I like having low drops. I've played Phantasmagoria many times, so I've one dropped with this army quite a bit. And I'm a give the turn away guy almost every time. On this map, that is to say, on Total Conquest, I would absolutely give the turn away, because there's so much incentive to go take the points back from people. I have to wonder if he didn't take the first turn because he's afraid he couldn't pry the daughters off of the spot. is my honest answer.
I think honestly, and also like he manages to get into there before buffs are up, like, which is a thing. Not that some of them are static, right? They're already in effect just by existence and being there. Not much you can do about that. I think also the output from the Bloodstalkers could be an issue, and making it so that that some of those backline characters are protected, I think, is a key. One of the things also to talk about is that there is a classic conversation, which is nice to have when we're not talking about IDK, is that there is an advantage going to the Beast of Chaos in this situation. Rare that you get to make that claim, in that they have flying units. They can hold up units. Now, the teleport that you have coming out of the Daughters of Cain is significant, but everything else is landlocked. They're womping across the board. Now, it's not going to be overly dramatic for them to womp across some Ungor. Like, they're gonna fall to a mighty wind. However, the Enlightened, they love a good activate after. And what I mean by that is screen with the Ungor and then put the Enlightened behind. So if they're activating second, they're going to get their rerolls. And I think you see that played quite a lot. We saw Dan Bradshaw do it a lot over here in the UK. Put it up on screen and then being able to pile in afterwards. Benjamin not going to fall for that. And I don't think Blagan thinks Benjamin's going to fall for that as well. Because as much as Benjamin is a very vaunted and well-known player, Blagan's been playing Beasts a lot, pretty much exclusively. So I don't think he's going to mess around. And some very aggressive early attacks with that unit of 3 Enlightened, which is a nice cheap throwaway unit. Because if he does manage to reduce the efficacy of this unit of Cainite Shadowstalkers, if he takes out, I don't know, half that unit, that takes out one of his 2 very mobile threats, other than, of course, the Life Takers. That's a different level of mobile threat. I don't know. What are your thoughts that he's got an advantage with the flying units, ignoring the life takers, or do you think the life takers are going to be as much of a crutch as the Enlightened are for the Beasts of Chaos?
Yeah, I mean, I think the life takers give the daughters a good option here. I love the successive chaff sort of walls. The way that Ben has set up his list is telling as to what his game plan is, right? The avatars out front as bait, like that's what they're there for, right? He likes them. He likes the +1 to prey, but he doesn't need it. I think when it comes to the flying units, I think Blagan's doing the right thing. Like, go push with the 3. You don't really need them as part of your overall game plan, right? And if you can weaken that 18 unit, like, the problem is if he puts them in as the only unit, then obviously they're going to have to swing first, and obviously they're not going to get their bonuses. And the Shadowstalkers, it's 18 of them. They're not going to be the easiest unit to pick up for 3 Enlightened, right? Yeah. Especially without rerolls. They're just not going to do the damage. And the bright side is, though, they'll probably live through the swing back, right? Yes. Because the reality is, without all the buffs, and spread out in this chaff line as they are, they won't be able to kill the 3 Enlightened back, likely. But here's the trick. If I'm Ben, I don't care. I'm willing to throw away 8 or 9 Shadowstalkers, right? And then, because what's going to happen next round is I'm just going to teleport them wherever the heck I want to put them and regroup them, right?
Yeah, you
like,
are. Yeah,
you're not miring me in, right? And then the second row is all flyer life takers that he can just like buff and go remove what he needs to remove, right? So to me, it's a great play. Like, I love having a teleporting unit. This is rare it's actually pretty rare that you get to do this sort of thing. But I love having a teleporting unit as my front chaff line, because then if the opponent doesn't actually remove your chaff, you can just be like, cool, boop, boop, there goes my chaff. It's gone. It's somewhere else now, being a problem for you somewhere else on the board, taking up space, potentially holding an objective, and being something I can use later. And that cost me nothing, effectively, right? And now my army's just ready to come rip-roaring across at you without anything in the way. Right?
Agreed. Also, one of the nice things about your own chaff unit, or your screen in front of you moving out of the way, is sometimes your screen gets in the way of where you want to attack. You're like trying to get your own screen out of your way so you can bring your big hitters in. It's one of the things that we kind of talked about in the last match, and I think is always really relevant, is those screening units controlling the board space for you early doors, and then you being able to counter punch with all your big pieces are also so key, which is why I like those trading units, which you can use with Kinari or even like 9s of Shadow Stalkers. They can just jump onto an objective. They make you have to go there to go grab an objective, and then they run off. And I think always a valuable sort of play. I do really love these Centaurs hanging out by this this campfire, by the way. I just like the idea that they maybe are eyeing it up to get drunk at some point soon, but that's a narrative, as a narrative mainly channel. Sorry for bringing that up. It's just one of those things that that amuses me. Blagan going really wide. His Dragon Ogre Shaggoth has moved down to the bottom with his unit of best Ungors at the bottom, and then he's gone with his big unit of 6 Enlightened up the top, and his Shaman. His Shaman is also up at the top as well, which I think is fascinating. So, very wide. All of the movement done. That's what the board looks like. The charge phase is going in, and the Ungor have charged. Of all people, the Ungor have charged first. And he's just making sure he's outside of 3 of the Avatar. So that's something he's specifically looking to avoid. Because that Avatar, Vince, incredible output for its points value, right?
No.
Oh, you don't think?
No, not at the moment, Rob, because it's round 1 and nobody's prayed. So that's just a big rock.
Is it not not awakened just like straight away?
No.
If your army includes Avatar Arcane, pick one friendly Avatar Arcane on the battlefield. Next to phase the Avatar Arcane is animated. Oh, so you do have to animate it. This model cannot move and cannot attack. Okay, so it has to be animated first.
He's hiding. I think Blagan doesn't know exactly how that avatar works. Like, he thinks if it's on foot, it's a real thing, which is funny. Like, he's made a decision. Like, Ben has scared him into making a decision that he didn't need to make because the avatar isn't awake right now. It's not actually a thing. It's just a big rock. It's just a big statue right now. And he's doing it again on the other side. You have to animate them. Now, the advantage to Hagnar, that's what we call that force, is that in turn 2, they wake up, right? Because this is what I was talking about, Rob. So his actual thing to Hagnar is that, remember, Hagnar is always 1 battle round ahead on the blood rights table.
It is.
And so that means he's going to be re-rolling his, he's going to be on, he's already on reroll 1s to run and 1s to charge. That's just turn 1, you're that. He's already a 4 up on his Hag Brew in turn 1. That's already happening, right?
Yep.
When it comes to turn 2, all of his statues wake up automatically. No need to pray for them anymore, okay? And now, if you're asking me when the statue is awake, is it actually scary and can it do work? Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely it is.
4 attacks, 3s and 3s, Ren 2, 3 damage. Is pretty potent, ultimately. Coming out of those small bases. And I think also one of the things that for 130 points, also 9 wounds with a 4-up save is not bad for 130 points. Like, you would take that profile all day, and it's cheap. I know the whole book is cheap, but I think ultimately it's there's some strong pieces, and they can tank quite nicely as well.
Sure.
And they're fast. They move 9 inches for some reason.
For some reason, they're very well. They got long legs, so they can really get to stepping. And I wondered where our ambushing friends were. Glad to see them coming on. I think we might have been a little late on that. We kind of moved past it, but that's all right. No big deal. I was a little worried. I was like, what? Did he just decide to I don't need those 2 units? I feel like playing on real hard mode. But no, they're here. Okay, good. We got our little Ungor and our little besties down there. Our little best friends, the best of yours. Yeah, I mean, it's the Ungor aren't. It's interesting. This is an interesting play, right? Like, the way he's charged in the Ungor, he's trying to basically stop the Shadow Stalkers from piling in against the Enlightened or really taking much of an action in this fight. If I'm Ben, I'm like, great, thank you for doing that. I wasn't going to pile in anyways. I didn't care. I was going to get like one more guy into combat against the Enlightened. I didn't think I was going to kill the Enlightened right here. I didn't need to kill the Enlightened right here. And, like, okay. My move would just generally be to get, now I get to kill a few Ungor for free. Right?
Yeah.
This low bravery unit. I mean, Ungor, what, bravery 4 or 5? I don't remember off the top of my head their exact bravery number, but it's something in that general vicinity. Bravery 4. So yeah, there you go. And they do not have any bravery bonus on their scroll, which is crazy. So like, you pop one guy off of that unit, you stand a pretty decent chance of having a couple more run, right?
Yeah, I would say that like one of the reasons that we're seeing those units in there though is to make the Shadow Stalkers activate first. And once the Shadow Stalkers activate, the Enlightened are going to get all their rerolls,
Absolutely.
which is going to be fairly important for them. And activating those guys.
Yep, so, you're absolutely right.
So the Ungor going first. Go on, after you.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, that is still risky. The Shadow Stalkers are still dangerous enough. Like, I appreciate the pull, but like I said, it's a throwaway chaff unit. Like, this is a lot of work going into something that realistically he's still going to probably have a decent amount of at the end. I noticed we got 5 more Sentis up the back of the board. I thought his list only had 5 Senegors in it. Does it have 10? Is there an extra?
Let me double check. It has got 1 unit of 5 Centigore, not 2 units of 5 Centigore in the list. And hopefully that's not right. We'll get our table boss to double check that situation.
I wonder because I see.
We'll just double check why there are 2 units of Centigore on the board but only 1 on the list. Is the question that we will sort and find out. I know what it'll be. No, it's okay. I already know what it is. It will be he summoned them on. He did have 6.
They were his
He had 6 faction points, and then we've used 2 so far. So that's what we're seeing right here.
Okay, there we go. That makes sense then. All right.
Right, and so the Ungor attacking have killed a Shadow Stonker, but only 1. But that wasn't really their job. Their job was to create the activations. And Benjamin not messing about. He's just like, cool, I'll activate with these guys. Here we go. Question, Vince, a little bit here. How do you feel about the geometric patterns that we see sometimes in Age of Sigmar? These long strung out lines of these units, like not needing to be in ranks in any sort of way and strung out. Like, it makes lots of sense. Hard in some situations to manage and control, and very susceptible to things like Star Drakes. Not that we see them often, for picking out models and breaking coherency. Always a bit of a danger sometimes when you write these small units that can control board space very minimally against certain other armies.
My answer is, seems fine to me. Like, it never bothered me. Like, units move around in all sorts of weird ways. Like, troops are troops, they do weird things when they fight, I guess, right? Like, it's cool. I have less than 0 love for any rank and flank type of thing, so I'm fine.
Yeah. I think there's a really interesting conversation about some of the units at the moment that can take models out of objectives. Not necessarily a huge threat to some of these strung out units, although they can be in the right situation, because you know that they're going to exist. But having those in your army reduces your opponent's ability to string out, and I think that's always a fascinating conversation in the list design phase, or even if you're paired against them. Not that either of these armies have them, I don't think. So they're safe. And then We've just lost 3 Ungor Raiders in the bottom left-hand corner to the Shadow Stalkers, but that does mean now that the Enlightened can activate if they want to. I think they're just seeing now, they're testing to see if he can move the unit of Enlightened over the Shadow Stalkers and push them into the back, looking to take out those life takers. Maybe Blagan seeing them as a major threat, as you've talked about earlier on in the show.
And I suspect he's right. I don't think he'd be able to hop the base over there. Like, at best, maybe he'd have 1, but boy, would that be really a stretch, I'll be honest. Like, I think Ben has set up correctly so that that's not going to happen. Just because I think there'd be no way to maintain coherency and do it. But we'll see what they come to. The fact that like I said, the 3 Ungor died. That doesn't surprise me. Look, the fact that the Ungor brought down 1 Shadowstalker, I consider that a tremendous victory. Already, the moral victory has been had for the beasts.
Yep.
They drew first blood. I suppose in multiple ways, both through sacrifice and this.
They're going to be dancing around the fire pit later on well, they'll probably be dead, but like maybe their sons and cousins will be dancing around the fire pit in celebration. So we've just seen the attacks coming in from the Enlightened. Now the spears on top on the Enlightened do have 2-inch range, and so we're seeing some of those attacks being put into the life takers at the back. There's 3 attacks each, hitting on 4s. So 7 attacks are going into them. They hit on 4s, but they get to reroll. They wound on 3s, rem 1, and damage 2. And they're all getting to reroll to hit and reroll to wound because they're activating second, which I think is pretty smart. And then that's the guys on the not on the discs, and the discs themselves they've got D3 attacks doing D3 damage. So we could see some wicked work coming out. It does depend on those D3 rolls, right? It's so unreliable. Oh, and he's wiped the unit, Vince. The unit is
That's
gone.
impressive.
All the life takers are out. That's a big piece gone out of the Daughters of Cain army early, right?
It is. It absolutely is. Like that's actually a blow for Ben there. And that's a lesson. Like you really got to think about your space and how you're setting stuff up.
Yeah. Now,
why I like a double chaff line.
Yeah, there is a second unit. I think that's just ultimately like, that Enlightened unit, that's a trade I think you'd take, but they only killed 80 points. It's not, it's a crazy threat like you were describing, but only 80 points that removed.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where you end up with, if you lose it, you're like, oh, well, what did I actually lose? Not much. But I think that's a great play by Blagan, realizing that those spears could reach over the top. They had the range. It's like it removed a threat.
Yeah, it does.
That's the reality.
And depending on how well the discs do, we could see the Shadow Stalkers get reduced as well. So that we could also see, I think we're seeing 1 put back at the moment. So we'll just double check that right now.
The reality is, if he managed to keep one of them, that's actually really great for Ben, because one of them, the mobility, the flight you're talking about, one of them ends up being able to be just. I would float it to the back, let it just chill. Assuming I can make it withstand. Which, by the way, it's pretty brave right now with everything that's going on. So, like even rolling hot, you stand a good chance of keeping the thing. And I would just float to the back and save it for late game to go, hold objectives, to go camp things, to be an extra body when I need it. It's crazy movement on the life takers. Just keeps it as a late game piece, even as only a single model, right?
Yeah, it's true. And the Enlightened that he's trading off with are another thing it does are 180 points. Thank you, Colonel Cabbage. I would say one of the other things that's quite interesting here is he's put like a marginal threat into the opponent's territory. Not huge. Something that your opponent has to push out of their lines. But like we said, those avatars will be able to do it. Even the hag on top of the cauldron could do it. There's only 12 wounds in that Enlightened unit, so they're very fragile. But they're easy enough to push off. But he's got like a lot of dominant threats, like very close, and he's also got to be conscious. He's got to be super conscious of these Enlightened, which are threatening him from 2 flanks. He's got that unit of 6 at the top left and the unit of 6 at the top right, all vying to push really hard on a priority roll into the enemy. So Benjamin has to I think it's a very interesting play by Blagan, giving some like very early mid-game threat, like mid of the board threats, and saying, hey, I've got some real big threats further away that you're going to have to deal with. So Benjamin not able to move aggressively and create some sort of center space for himself initially, and he's going to have to push out and also try and be defensive at the same time. It's going to be a hard play. I'm going to be very interested to see how he does it and what he decides to put into there. But ultimately, those avatars, one of those avatars could probably go over there and take each of those objectives on their own. They're really good. So I'm excited to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I mean, he's got some real choices with the avatars, because one of the things he could do is go send the avatars to go tangle with the 6 Enlightened on disc, Okay,
Yeah.
like they're both probably within range of a fairly moderate charge. Like because as you said, they move surprisingly far, right, with a 9-inch move. And so let's say like if I'm Ben, one of the thoughts in my head is I march the lower avatar up toward the back six, I march the upper avatar up toward the top six, I charge and tag an edge of especially that 6 unit on top, right?
Yeah.
And the reality is I'm not that scared of those enlightened if they can't really get in on me. You know, if I've got just the one guy, like he could sit there and tangle with them for quite a while and probably do some decent ish damage back to them.
Yeah.
And just kind of force them to be like, okay, well, now you've got to like retreat away from me if you want to go actually be in this fight. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then meanwhile, he could just have the Shadow Stalkers, flee away, go teleport. As usual, Rob, this is one thing we've talked about many times. Blagan put his 6 enlightened up there on the back edge of that top right objective. Right. So let's take a look at the top right objective, the one right next to the lake. Okay.
Yeah.
And notice how he's put his 6 guys up there, and I have to wonder if it wasn't a mistake to put a little more heat into the Ungor, because if Ben had actually Ben went for all of his attacks he could get into the Enlightened, which is I suppose a fairly obvious move, right? But if he would have put all the heat he could into this little unit of Ungor and forced him to start removing him from that unit, he could have probably just teleported these Shadow Stalkers right up to the edge. There's probably a 9-inch line where he could be on the other side taking that top objective from him just off the teleport, just literally landing down and stealing it from them.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying there? Because
yeah,
they're
absolutely.
12 inches away on the other side. Now they're probably going to be stopped from that at the moment by the wrap of the Ungor.
So we just while we're looking at the top down, we have seen the end of the battle shot phase and the end of Beast of Chaos turn 1. Not a bad turn because they ended up using a CP. So Daughters of Cain lost the CP, but they've obviously gained one back now in the hero phase. The Shadow Stalker unit reduced down to half, but they've still got that Shroud Queen in there, and a CP spent to keep them immune to Battle Shock. We did see our other Life Taker run away in Battle Shock. So the 4 that got killed, the 5th one ran away. And now we are into the Daughters of Cain turn 1. First thing we've seen done is one of the avatars of Cain awoken. I think that was what we attempted. We'll just get that. Blessing of Cain was attempted, and a 1 was rolled. So that +1, Vince, doesn't help you all the time. A 2+ isn't definitely happens, right?
It does not. That's why I always have my iron circlet whenever I want it. Like that's why I'm a big believer in always having a battalion, always having that iron circlet. People ask me, "Do you really need it?" My answer, yes, because dice roll ones.
So we've just seen Witch Brew be failed. 2 wounds were caused to the Enlightened. Witch Brew, I don't know who it was attempted to be cast on. That's the interesting conversation. Who would you put Witch Brew on, Vince, at the moment?
Who would I put the Witch Brew on? Boy, it's a good choice with what's up here. My honest answer is I'd probably put it on the Shadow Stalkers if they're in range still, which I think they are. I'd probably just throw it down on the Shadow Stalkers because they're still an easy mobile threat right now.
So only one of the avatars have been animated, and we have seen Witch Brew failed. So not necessarily the most successful hero phase so far. Which one of the avatars was animated? Please, Table Boss, we'll find out that.
Aren't we all just sitting here waiting to see if Mind Razor goes off?
Maybe. It's going to be interesting. Vince, with the attempt of Mind Razor, it gives you the opportunity to talk about Phantasmagoria and the fact that they can all unbind, right?
They can, that's right. Yeah, the little Ungor can actually unbind. They're up there. They're close enough. They'll be able to unbind, which is hilarious to me. As can the Enlightened, by the way. You have to be within 9 inches to unbind with the Phantasmagoria Fate, but they're both likely within range of his casters. Although the back caster, it's the girl on the shrine that has Mind Razor because she also has the Shadow Stone. So, here's the question I want to ask you, Rob. Let's get to the important stuff here. Of if you're Ben, okay, you got 3 units of 5 shooters. Where are they going?
I would want to. I'm not going to do any impactful damage in the right, like to some of the threats, and those threats really are on the 2 units 6s. So I probably would just be looking to whittle units down and take whole units out. I would use. I would probably be aiming to take out all of the units of Ungor, even the Centaur, make them battle shock off, reduce their numbers and the ability to control board space. I think that would be the kind of key point for me there. If I was in range, maybe I'd aim for the Shaman. The Shaman's pretty tanky though. Like, he's not got a good save, but he's got a good wound pool. I'm not sure I'd necessarily be able to take the Shaman out with all of the shots. Oh, I've got 2 units in range? Maybe? No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I'll tell you how I'd split this. The green unit, I think, is tied up in combat with both the Ungor and the Enlightened on disc, right? So it's got to shoot at one of those 2. I agree with you. I'd be blasting those Ungor all day and all night. Okay.
Yeah, I'd be looking to take out as many controlling threats as possible. I think as the game seems to or feels to have over the past year or so turned into less of a big blocks game and more of an MSU game in a lot of ways. A lot of the conversation is orientated around kind of how you would deal with Nagash of old, where it was like, don't kill Nagash, just kill the units around Nagash and then you'd be fine. Maybe before, that was kind of before a Legions of Nagash situation where all those units would come back. But sure. More like how you deal with the pieces around the big piece. And then in this situation, when everything's a little piece, you just take out as many of those smaller units as possible, I think.
Yep.
We've heard none of the spells were cast by Daughters of Cain. Both avatars are awakened, though. However, double ones to cast on all of the... Only 1 or 2. Yeah, all of the spells seem to have not been cast there, Vince. Which is Mind Razor you were looking for, right?
I was. But look, Rob, you know what I say all the time? I say magic is stupid in this game and does nothing. So that's fine. Magic does nothing unless you're a spell dom, so it's always a bonus. You don't need it in this army to go to town. Like, you can go to town without it, so it's fine. And Ben making that play up toward those Enlightened, just as I suspected with that top avatar. It just makes sense. It's a easy play. I want to know who the red snakes are in combat with, if anybody. Because I'll tell you right now, Rob, I'm trying to pop that shaman off the table. They are so if the reds are currently in combat with the Enlightened, then that locks them down in a very negative way for him. Like, that's actually Blagan's best move he did in round 1. Let me tell you that right now, because he does not want to lose that shaman. Okay, that Great Bray Shaman, that's only a 5 wound dude on like a 5 up save.
Yeah, 5 up save. But he's got, like I say, like a lot of people are always surprised by the Shaman. Pretty certain he's rocking 6 wounds on a 5 up save.
He is a 5 wound hero. He is a 5 wound hero on a 6 up save.
Yeah, 6 wounds. 6 wounds on a 5 up save. 6 wounds.
No, Great Bray Shaman. Not the Zangor Shaman.
Oh, the Bray Shaman. Sorry. Yes. We're having...
Sorry, we were talking about... You're right, they're both
different
shamans.
goats.
That's funny. Different goat people. I apologize. Should have been more clear. I was talking about, yes, the great... I'll say it like this. Great Bray and Zanny. And Zanny. Yeah. So Great Bray is 5 wounds on a 6 up save. I would put those 5 snakes that are free and clear into him without a moment of hesitation. Like, you stand an actually decent chance of killing that guy with 5 snakes. And that gets rid of Vicious Stranglethorns. It gets rid of the +3 movement. It gets rid of the Knowing Eye. Like, it gets rid of its potential CP generation. Like, it's... killing that little dude would actually be quite impactful. It's also, by the way, I would hunt leaders real hard, because let's all remember, you score extra points when you've got a leader within 6, right? So at the end of that first round, he got 2 for his back he took 3 objectives, obviously, right? The Blagan did, and he got 2 for 2 of those objectives.
Yeah,
because he had the leader within range. The Shaggoth down in the bottom one, and the Great Bray up top. So.
Right, so I think we end. Is this the end of the movement phase? We'll just find out what phase we're in. Table boss, please. Okay. All right, sweet. So, yeah, Vince, I would say that there's that I want to talk about the Avatars of Kane. Before I do, though, I would like to quickly thank Galaneth for resubscribing. Also to also to Kong Holst. Thank you so much for being a first-time subscriber in the chat. Also to Jonathan Etland and also Fear Sean. Thanks all for subscribing and thanks all for joining us. This is the bottom of turn 1 in round 2. So this is one match in 25 matches that are happening over round 2 in the Battle of Copenhagen. It's a 5-round TTS tournament, and this is round 2. The highest representation at this event is Tzeentch, followed by Kharadron Overlords, and there are only 2 Seraph on list, both of which are weird and janky, so not really an on-meta event, apart from maybe Tzeentch, probably. But KO in attendance is actually really important. I think actually the most armies we've seen, the most KO armies we've seen, Vince, at a TTS event to date. I don't know how if you rate their chances of taking the event out.
I mean, KO have some hard counters, but if they dodge them, they're pretty strong. I mean, KO or KO, right? They do what they do. They're undercosted. They are all power projection all the time. I mean, an army that shoots that much and teleports. It's never that bad. I want to talk about how I think Ben missed a trick right here.
Go for it.
Okay. So, do we all see the Slaughter Queen on foot down there next to the not colored unit of stalkers? So he's got both of his little Slaughter Queens hanging down there, right?
Yes, sir.
These are the little Slaughter Queens on foot. Now, one of these little Slaughter Queens, okay, one's Morgwaith and one's a Slaughter Queen. I apologize. I don't know which one's which, but one of those down there is a Slaughter Queen. Okay. And that Slaughter Queen has she's actually okay in combat if she prays her weapon up. Like she can pray her own weapon up and stuff. She's a decent little combat thing. I would have gotten her. I would have seen if we could have got her around those snakes somehow. Like they're kind of locking her in. I would have tried to get her in a position where she could charge at those Ungor. Because that little Slaughter Queen can actually go do work in the combat phase in those Ungor. Like, you don't need the piece. And then she's in the way for the bestie countercharge if you don't get the double. Right? And like if those Vestigor, it stops how far they can move. Maybe they can charge around her, maybe they can't. Depends on what they roll.
So go on, Vince, please continue.
No, as you're saying, it'd be a great play because it's a piece you don't really need. Sacrament of Blood's not that essential to his list. It's cool, but it's not essential. And it'll make it so he can really do work. Go ahead, Rob.
Agreed. No, agreed. I'm just letting us know what phase we're in. We're in the shooting phase is where we currently are, and we're seeing these Bloodstalkers shooting into these Ungor, as me and Vince were talking about. We thought that was a... and then we've also seen the Medusa on top using her scary stare to shoot into the Ungor as well. And the Shadow Stalkers have also taken the Enlightened down, taken one out and taken the other one down to 1 wound. So able to effectively clear this unit in the shooting phase before we even get into combat. And I think we just saw that last... The snake from Morgweith's group, into the Enlightened is what we're seeing right now. So we're going to see maybe that last wound taken off that last Enlightened. There we go. Great shooting from those guys. Yeah, the Care Bear stare is what we just saw. And so those lines cleared fairly effectively. Honestly, amazed, Vince, is what I'm going to say, by these Avatars of Kane movement. And how they're these absolute missiles that are just being fired off. Because 9 wounds on a 4-up save is not anything to laugh at. And then the fact that that they're going to be going into here that could potentially take out the Dragon Ogre Shaggoth or the Enlightened. Really, really scary. Small pieces.
I love it. I love them firing off, and I love how much shooting. It's the Daughters is a shooting army now. Okay, and everybody thinks of that as just being the bow snakes, and certainly they're present here and ready to do work. But consider how much shooting he has that isn't the bow snakes. All of the Shadow Stalkers, 36 people have a ranged attack, right? Yeah, it's only 6 inches, but look how effective it is at clearing out stuff. This is a huge advantage. This is why I rate Stonkers so highly above things like Witch Elves or Sisters. And then he's got the little extra shot coming in from the Morgue Waistband, like, hey, why not for 80 points? Why not get another free shot? And the stairs out of the Medusa. Rob, I think one of the most impactful changes that happened in the updated Daughters book is that the Medusa stair went from a 10-inch range to a 12-inch
range. Yeah, genuinely terrifying.
Such a difference.
Such a difference. Very happy you can't take them in squads anymore. That used to be a thing, and that was truly scary. But yeah, 12 inches is phenomenal, and again on a very cheap base, very cheap to bring a horde clearing ability. It's very, very good. Yeah, very, very, very good. And and I can see it. I can see the use of it as well, because I think in this list, or in Benjamin's list, there's a lot of applied specific damage. Like you'd be able to take a unit, buff it up, like we're talking about with the Life Takers, or even with the Shadow Stalkers, get them in a place and definitely delete a thing. I feel like if they hit, if there was a couple of major threats, and also there was a horde in front of us at the same time, there would be a really big issue. However, the ability to do both both in different phases as well, deal with something in the combat phase, and then he's got a lot of shooting and ranged threat as well to deal with other problems. He's got the Stalkers, they can deal with characters, and then he's got the Care Bear Stair coming out of the Bloodwrack Shrine to deal with hordes. He's got a lot of utility inside the book. It's the reason whenever you write a Cities of Sigmar list, you're like, should I take 3 gyrocopters? And then you always think, they never really work. You always like the idea of what they could do, but they don't do that thing, which I think is a tough time. Yeah.
Oh, by the way, don't forget those awakened avatars also have a ranged attack. Did you remember that, Rob? That the avatars themselves have a ranged attack as well?
Yes.
So just the number of shots coming out of his daughter's army, it's ridiculous. Like, oh, it's the shooting phase. Oh, not that much to do, right? You're a daughter's army. Oh no, every unit in this army has a shooting attack, basically.
Wow. Wow, that's incredible. So freeing everything up in the shooting phase so that it allowed the unit of Bloodstalkers to be free to still shoot. He used the reroll triumph that he got, again, call for bans to all triumphs always. But the triumph he got was reroll hits. So his Bloodstalkers rerolled hits into those Zangor Enlightened and took 2 of the Zangor Enlightened out. That's 8 wounds coming out of that Bloodstalker unit at 24 inches straight away. And 3 of them were mortals. That's really significant, because I kind of fancied the Avatar going in and maybe us being left with 3 Enlightened and then them being able to strike back. Now I feel if that charge comes off, the Avatar is going to be in some real issues. That the Avatar, when he goes in, the Enlightened are in some real trouble up at that top objective. And like the level of projection of power is significant. Significant. So we're into the charge phase. Oh, wow.
I think, by the way, Rob, I just take my Avatar and I go smash his Shaman off the board. I don't go after the regular Enlightened. I stay out of 3.
Well, he's with you, and this is a dominant phase. Look at this. The charge gone in from one Avatar into the Dragon Ogre Shaggoth, and then the Zangor Shaman also against the Avatar. Oh! I thought you'd flip the table then in rage. The charge.
It's just like, nope, the game gave up. Let me get myself back into view here. So, yes, this is exactly like, okay, I really want to talk about Ben and the way he's playing here, because just as a quick note for folks, I think Blagan did a smart play. He tried to trap in as much as he could. He tried to put pressure on. He kept the everything in place. What he did effectively do was he held the Daughter's army in place, right?
Yeah.
The Daughter's army's now been pinned in its zone. Like, he's not out there threatening these other objectives right now, other than the Avatars, which, by the way, guys, we said, great play, put the Avatars out, who cares? Your opponent's probably not going to try to attack him because they know they won't kill him. and then they're free to go roaming. And I love that, like, on one hand, Blagan did well. If he gets the top of 2, he's done a great job because, it's very unlikely the Avatar brings down the Shaggoth. It's just unlikely he does 10 damage to that Shaggoth. It's possible, but it's not the modal mathematical outcome. It is very likely the Shaman gets pasted by that Avatar, by the way. And that's one less hero.
Wow.
So
yeah. The Avatar's just struck into the Shaggoth. Now that's the first activation. Only 3 damage done into the Shaggoth. So we might see him alive, which is important as well, although that objective is going to be safe. And I still think the objective at the top is safe. So while Benjamin is making some good plays, we talked about this in the last game as well, always what you're doing is you're managing what your army wants to do, what your opponent army wants to do, and how you can shut that down, and also playing the objective game. Love that about the game, as always. And while Benjamin has done a really solid job of dealing with the threats that Blagan have put into his line, and also starting to remove some of the other major threats, so really hampering his opponent's ability to do anything significant next turn, he still hasn't played the objective game on top of that right now. He's done a really good job of giving himself more room to play the objective game going into the later turns. And instead, as he's kept, like as you've said, and as you were pointing out, he's maintained his strong position. He's projecting power from there very significantly and trying to cut his opponent's army to pieces to give himself opportunity to get into those locations later on. Now that's always pretty much my game plan as well. Sometimes though, the timer is running out on you. The clock does tick very significantly. Like any of those charges had not pulled off, that would have been an issue to some degree. But he's maintained this kind of strong line, and those shadows, those stalkers, those blood stalkers, phenomenal. What we normally see 20 of them with Marathi, but these little bricks of 5 are really impressing me at the moment.
They're really solid. I think Blagan's biggest mistake in round 1. I really love his plays. I thought they were great. They were aggressive. They were smart. I think his biggest misstep was not tagging in the avatars because he didn't realize they were just statues that couldn't attack him back. Right.
Agreed.
And so the reality is, though, this army, the Daughter's army, is very explosive, and it can really just pop out of there. But look, the best case scenario for Ben at the bottom of 1 is it's 6-2, right? That's the score at the bottom of 1. That's what it's going to be, because Ben's not going to take either of the other points. He's got his own. He didn't take anything back from anyone. So he's really going to have to hustle in the next turns, because if Blagan gets top of 2, right, he can just stand still for the most part. Like, obviously he's going to retreat the Shaman away. You could retreat the Shaggoth away if you want, and just stand there, and he'll score another 6 points without doing anything, right, and put it on 12-2. Now, in Total Conquest, you can make that up, right? Because if Ben goes in with his leaders, he can turn these into 3-point objectives by taking them back. But still, that's a big gap that Blagan's opening up early, which is good. That's strong.
Yeah, it's very strong. I think it's a general Beast of Chaos methodology as well. I think that they know they have nothing that plays the attrition game. They have nothing that does that. So it's either score early and hold on like old Sylvaneth, or how Mega Gargant's playing now, or it's like just attrition out just so they can score enough points into turn 3, and then then their army falls to pieces, basically. Because they just don't have anything that can survive. Just talking about the combat phase real quick, the Avatar did go into the Zangor Shaman, only caused 3 wounds. The Zangor Shaman, in return, we talk about this as a wizard versus enraged statue of a god, did 3 back. So yeah, watch out for my magic stick. And then a Dragon Ogre Shaggoth, which is like 2 very significant words, dragon and ogre, Vince. A combination of both did 0 wounds to the Avatar of Cain. Age of Sigmar, a confusing game at the best of times when it comes to output in some cases.
Rob, there are 2 things in this life that I know are true. 1, I love Dragon Ogre Shaggoth. They're my favorite unit in the army, in Beast. It's one of the reasons I wanted to play Beasts. I love Shaggoths. I love Doom Bulls. But the That's the first thing I know. They're incredible. Number two, they will let you down every time. Every time.
Oh, so we have seen this unit of. Oh no! I hope that's right. So we've seen the unit of Ungor Raiders pile in, and they've piled in into the Bloodstalkers. They've done no damage, but the important thing is that they have dragged in this unit, the unit of Cainite Shadowstalkers, as well, to capture them in. We'll see whether or not that's important or effective. I don't know if taking anything off the objective is the right decision, because the Shaggoth is still holding the objective. He hasn't outscored him in this position, so that seems fine. And maybe one of these units of Bestigors is on. The priority role here, though, is going to be fairly significant, because what Benjamin can do is he can just move this castle up quite effectively, and he can bring all 3 units of those Bloodstalkers to bear on that other major threat, which is that unit of Enlightened, which is really one of the only major threats Blagan's got left. He's got that unit of Enlightened, and he has that unit of 4 Enlightened at the top. So we now go, but we are now going to the priority roll, Vince. Big rolls. We'll see who took it. Wow, so Beast of Chaos have taken the turn having won the priority. I think very necessary for Beast of Chaos. Like, very, very necessary. What do you think, Vince?
I think that if they hadn't gotten priority, it would have been game over. My honest answer, because after Battle Shock, there's only one little Ungor left down in the bottom, so those Shadow Stonkers weren't actually trapped up anymore. If Ben had the turn where he can just explode out in whatever way he wants and go ham, then it would have been a short game. But now we've got a game, which is great. And I think that, if I'm Blagan, the question I'm asking myself is, what's the most I can do here with the pieces I've got left, right? Like, I've got to keep delaying him. I would be focusing on getting my max 12 points, right? And I would be saying to myself, okay, I can get my max 12. I got to keep a leader near all these places. How do I do that and put the threat on Ben to keep him in this castle? Like, I want to keep him in his castle as long as possible.
Yeah, it's interesting because like one of the things I'd like to do when I look at lists is I look at the threats. So normally, like, when you write down all the, like, whenever you have to do a list review show or anything, you talk about the threats, you talk about what's relevant. And as much as I love that Dragon Ogre Shaggoth, fairly irrelevant. Like, that's fair. Like, so the 3 major threats that existed in this list, and the only threats really, are those Enlightened and also probably the Shaman. Everything else, the 10 Bestigor maybe, but I wouldn't consider them to be a threat. Whereas we've lost 1 unit of Enlightened, and it feels like Daughters of Cain have still got so many threats. 2 Avatars of Cain, they're the threats. The 2 units of Shadowstalkers, even though one of them a little bit reduced, they're threats. The 3 units of Bloodstalkers, they're threats. And then, of course, finally, the Bloodrack Shrine, another threat. And we've still got a unit of Life Takers off the board. So, again, another threat. It just feels like a true overload of... not a mismatch, although that is probably fair, because ultimately, if real-world tournaments were in existence, probably Beast of Chaos would be running a sub-40% win rate, and Daughters of Cain probably be around the 60%. That would be the kind of general consensus from me. So there's like a 20% difference in win rates between these 2 armies. And you can kind of see why in this situation. Although that said, Benjamin has specifically created these very fragile-ish, 10 wound units here, like to make these mobile, agile threats and give himself a load of them, which I think is fascinating. Because for the same points as 1 unit of 6 Enlightened, he's got 2 Avatars of Cain and a unit of Shadowstalkers. And a unit of Bloodstalkers for the same price as one of those units of Enlightened. And it really does show that MSU has got a significant... there's significant room in building these MSU lists, but they're hard and fragile sometimes, and when you come up against those DPS checklists, they're good. Anyway, I blathered a lot there.
No, you're fine. And Geminids is out. My least favorite spell in the entire game. I do truly hate this spell. So it's out there doing what it does, causing debuffs all over the place on everybody, and it's a very impactful endless spell in this case. Like, getting it off was a big deal because subtracting one attack off of the Shadow Stalkers is actually a big deal, right? This is an army that largely relies on making multiple attacks with lots of units. And so minusing one attack them is a huge penalty in their overall output.
I think getting that spell off is super important. The Avatar not killing the Zangor Shaman is going to be something that they'll be having words with him after about. And then also all the mortal wounds just going into that unit as well. I think that's a huge play. Really good. Geminids is such a scary spell. Loads of mortal wounds. I can understand why you don't like it, Vince. Absolutely. It's so game-changing. So game-changing, especially with the priority roll now coming up, because he is going to have to try to unbind this in his next turn, Benjamin is, or that's going to fly through his army the turn after as well, just generally debuffing it and just really lowering its abilities to do anything useful, which is, you like your stuff being useful. That's what I like. I like my stuff being useful in the game, generally.
Yeah, well, exactly. This is my issue, right? My issue is that I don't like it. I don't like debuffs, and this is like the best debuff general spell that anybody can take, right? So there you go.
You'd have hated the last game. We had Alvanor unable to charge because of a spell, and then a whole nother Mountain Cow unable to do anything because of Be'lakor. It was awful. But it was really fun to watch.
Sounds terrible.
It was fun to watch, though.
No, I mean, it is what it is. It's a good spell, right? It's just I really, really, really hate seeing it.
So we're just rolling through the damage it does now, and it's going to do a couple of mortal wounds to the different units. And then start taking out some of these characters as well. Also, pinning in some of these units quite nicely because you can't move through and the spells unless you can fly. You can't move over them, so you have to move around them, so they're landlocked. So hitting the Slaughter Queen is important and starting to do some wounds. We saw 3 wounds into one of those Slaughter Queens. It's really good. I think it's a really good spell to have cast at this point. Blagan's got to be super happy he got it off, and that maybe is going to change the course of this game very dramatically. We'll have to see. Really, it's not going to come into play until Benjamin's second turn, so until the Daughters of Cain end up into their second turn, we're not going to really see how effective it is. He's going to have to deal with these kind of overriding threats, right? And this is, again, why the list is so good. You have to deal with these throwaway Avatar of Cains. Just got to deal with them. They're just throwaway. Right. You just have to deal with them because their output you can't laugh at. And so then you don't get to deal with the Bloodstalkers, which really are going to keep projecting power all the time. Good distraction piece. But like, really good. I like it a lot. And even the activations are going to be awkward because who are you going to put into... He's going to put the Enlightened into the one, probably put the Bestigor into the other. Do you think that's the right call? Maybe he could summon some Centaur on at the bottom and send his Bestigor off into the Bloodstalkers. Honestly, Vince, it feels like he's up against it, Blagan. But I'm interested to see what he does. Oh, there's the Centaur. They're off. That looks great. Oh, they've run. Are they drunk? Are they drunk? That's the real question. So Centaur can get drunk. So they're drunk. When they're drunk, they get +1. They get +1 to hit. But they unfortunately then a -1 save. Really like the Centaur War Scroll. I think it's a super fun cavalry unit. I don't think it's very good, but you could make it a little bit cheaper, and I think it's a really fun War Scroll. I like that mechanic at least, Vince. You got any thoughts?
Sure. Well, by the way, they don't have -1 to save anymore. It's just they get +1 to hit, and they give their opponent +1 to hit them. That's what happens if you say you're drunk now.
That way. Yeah.
And but yeah, Centaur are fun. They're a good mobile piece in this army. I don't rate them. I'll give you my honest answer. I just don't think they actually do enough, but they're a fun enough, fast little chaff piece, or / background objective threat. I think what Blagan's doing with the Bestigor is exactly what I would be doing. Like, so he's in the middle of doing the things I think I would do in this position. Like, I would have retreated my Shaman the heck out of there, brought the other Enlightened up, just smashed that top Avatar off the table. Let's just get rid of it. Let's deal with it. I'll leave my Shaggoth there because I'm not worried about him dying. He can sit there and tangle with that Avatar for a while. I honestly would just let it ride. you're not threatening that objective with the one avatar. You're very unlikely to kill me. So whatever, you know. Maybe I retreat, maybe I don't, but I'm not really that worried about it. Like he can sit there and handle himself and just play a little dance around with that avatar on that spot. And then what I'm thinking about is how do I keep him in his castle? The Bestigor are going to be a big part of that. I want to bring them in exactly as he did. I want to charge. I want to get in on the edge of those Shadow Stonkers and get some more damage into them. And I want to pick up a unit of 5 bow snakes, right? So I want to get rid of 5 of these little snake ladies. And remember, the Bestigor, this is like their optimal situation. They're because you're fighting an order unit. So they're in there. They're on the charge. Now, if they does the I don't think the Stonker unit still has 10 models, or does it? 8. Nope, it does not have enough models to trigger that bonus, but they are fighting an order thing, so they get reroll ones to hit. Somehow, Daughters of Cain are in fact still order, so they still get that bonus.
They're just winking, is what they're doing. Whenever Sigmar's like, "Are you good guys?" Like, winky face. We're definitely good guys. That's what they're doing. Yeah, I agree.
The new meme from WandaVision is very much in effect with the Daughters of Cain. Yes.
Yeah.
But overall, what I'm thinking about is how do I use that backpack of 6 enlightened to get in there and do the most damage, right? How do I because they're my last real hammer piece, and I know if I throw them forward into the mix that I'm going to lose them, right? That's a real challenge for me. My honest answer is I think Blagan's being very smart here. I wouldn't just like wheel them forward because I saw what happened to the last guys that went in there, that went into the chipper shredder, right? That went into the incredible amount of shots and stairs and blood vomits and everything else that fires off there. So I think bringing them down to just clean up that avatar and hold that other point, you know, get rid of these 2 little things. You risk basically nothing, and then keep Ben in his castle, make him deal with just nonsense. That's absolutely the right answer.
I think pinning him in is very, very key. And actually, taking out these mobile threats where they're trading off, I think is very vital and actually really interesting to witness. And again, there he is moving up and moving one of his Ungor out, so these Bestigor can get in here. And while I think that the counterpunch is going to be pretty hard, they're going to lose the Bestigor, they'll lose the Centigor, absolutely, and maybe we'll see some more chip damage come into these Enlightened. I think, given Blagan another turn onto turn 3, if he gets the priority roll, I think he's got some real good options, again, just to punch into that castle. And like I talked about at the beginning of the show, Vince, when you trade off on objectives, that's fine until it gets too late. That's why we see a lot of lists go very aggro very early, because really what they want to do is what you really want to do in Age of Sigmar is successfully play 3 turns. You don't have to win the game on turn 5. You just need to have 3 turns where you're dominant on all the objectives and you win the game. That's how it pretty much works on the objectives. So this Beast of Chaos list, and some of the other lists we see like previously, like you see that with Sons of Behemoth. You saw that on the last game. You saw that in the last game where you had the big blocks of Blight Kings. Really, they just want to swamp your opponent and be like, cool, just don't get out of here for 2 turns, and I'm pretty much in the ascendancy, which is a very dynamic way to play and something you have to think about, like, how do I get myself out of this position? Which is why some of the stronger armies, Tzeentch and also Seraphon, are so dominant, because if anyone tries to put something in front of them, Tzeentch will just blip them off the board. They've just got so much mid-range threat. And then Seraphon are like, cool, I'm going to blip you off the board and teleport behind you at the same time. So just to catch everyone up really quickly, we're in the charge phase. We did get 1 Tuskor Chariots summoned at the back. That's all I was going to say. Vince, over to you.
No, I think he's doing you're exactly right. I know I've got 12 points in the bag if I'm Blagan this turn, right? Like, I can't help but get 12 points, or 12 total, right, is what I'm saying. And so bringing a Tuskor Chariot on in the back through summoning, great move. Bringing the Centigor over to just control board space, right? So that they can't move out that direction. Great move. Love it. The Chariot actually landing this charge, unexpected, but great. By the way, Tuskor Chariots, one of my favorite summons out of this army. And Rob, the reason for that is because Tuskor Chariots have built-in reroll to charge. They get that automatically on their scroll. So when you summon them, they're a fantastic summon. Putting pressure on these back fragile units. Now, again, are like the Centaur or the Chariot going to kill the Shadow Stalkers? No, of course not. Like, let's not. Come on now. Okay, like let's be realistic here. We are still talking about some very weak Beasts of Chaos units, but it's pressure on where he's pinning those in, and again keeping him in his castle. Look at where he moved the last proud Ungor Raider. Look at that guy, or Ungor, sorry. Look at that guy out there standing in the middle of the table, banner held high, right? Just taunting the entire Daughters of Cain force, and I love him for it because what he's doing there is just, again, limiting the movement of the Daughters of Cain, right? Keep them in their castle until turn 3 and you win this game. If they have to spend another round clearing off nonsense before they can explode out of this castle and he gets priority again, boom, now he's up at 18-4. Yeah. I mean, now we're at the point where it's like, okay, you're probably not mathematically coming back.
Yeah,
right?
It's super big. It's super big. Which is also one of the reasons that the Daughters of Cain book, while dominant and also will be very strong, is also, it has an inherent weakness in that it plays around itself. It must, like when you play Hagnar, like you talk about all of these overlapping buffs. Vince, we were talking about it. You want Mind Razor to go off. You know, you want Witch Brew. You want rerolls to wound. You want the extra damage, but it all has to play around these characters, which you're spending points on, which, yes, they're cheap. Yes, they're cheap, but all those have to go off, and they all have to be applied. When you're playing around Hagnar, it's a castle. It plays around itself. Very much like when you play with a Hurricanum, that +1 hit's so useful, but that means you're locked into where it plays, I think, which is why if you do something more nebulous, like you can just apply a buff and then teleport it, that is so much more relevant for like your ability to move around. It's why the War Chanter, I love the War Chanter War Scroll, because I give it to a unit, they run off maniacally, and then they're never buffed again. Because as the War Chanter jogs in their wake. So it just it's a really fun way to play. Just looking at all the charges that have been made, the 6 Enlightened have gone into the Avatar, the other 4 have gone in, and then we've also seen the Centaur. And we've also seen the Chariot summoned at the back into the Shadow Stalkers as well. So some heavy pressure being applied here. We just heard about combat as well. The Avatar of Cain was just given 7 wounds by the Enlightened. And he shrugged. So his DPR safe, he managed to roll 5 of them, which is pretty good.
It's not bad. It's not bad. I'll say that.
And now we're into ongoing
proud
combats.
Avatar ready to do some work. That's nothing to mess around with there. I love it. I'll tell you, I probably wouldn't have activated those Enlightened first. I think I would have activated the Bestigor first, is my honest answer. I would have rolled the dice and said, I bet my Avatar can, or I bet my Zangor can live. But because even the little bow snakes, as weak as they are, actually pose a decent enough threat to remove a couple Bestigor, and you want your max hitting power there. But it'll be interesting to see. I'm glad to see that in the end, the up there at the back, the Zangor Enlightened were successful. Even without their rerolls, they pulled the Avatar off. That's one less threat that the beasts have to worry about. They've got to be happy about that.
Very happy. This is looking really good for beasts. Like, so we are seeing the Avatar fighting back into the 6 now, which does mean they are going to get to activate those Bestigor for you next, Vince, and go into the Bloodstalkers. I'm not sure if I wouldn't. Oh, he is going with the Bestigor next. I wouldn't sure if I wouldn't see the Tuskor Chariot go in as well. But this Tuskor Chariot is annoying to remove. It's one of the... I played against my friend Mr. Colonel Cabbage at least once before, and they're just so aggravating. Every turn, there's just another Chariot into somewhere you don't want it to be, holding
Best
you up,
summon
blocking
on the
you in.
list.
Yeah, it's just so annoying all the time. And it's brilliant as well. It's brilliant. You're just battling on, and then some random goat dragged by some other goats is just like hurtling towards you. Like, this is terrible. I'm not happy about this at all. But for an actual play mechanic, it's like he looks fairly hemmed in. Like, it looks tough. And also some of his major threats have gone off the board, but we do have a unit of life takers still off the board. That's really important. We should make sure to keep that in mind.
Yes.
So yeah. Do you think those four Zangor now, sorry, Enlightened, they're still to swing. Very important that they take that Avatar of Kane out, I would say. Oh, there are 5. Sorry. Yeah, because I can't count.
I see it as almost an inevitability they pick up that Avatar. He'd have to roll very, very poorly for those 5 Enlightened not to wipe that Avatar. So, and again, it's going to put him in a dominant position because he's effectively hemmed the daughters back into their castle, which is great. I mean, it's a great play by Beasts if you can keep this extremely mobile army, right, in its castle. Like, it's what you got to do to win. And I'll tell you right now, I wouldn't care about activating the chariot. It's like it's there to pin. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, we'll kill some Shadowstalkers. We'll get around it whenever. It's fine. It's good.
Yeah. So we've seen the Bestigor have activated now, and we've seen 3 of the 5 of the Bloodstalkers lifted out of that unit now, which is another threat gone, which is really good. Again, those 10 Bestigor wounds, something they're going to have to deal with and get off the objective. It's looking very, very good. That priority roll, very, very important. Had it gone the other way, Benjamin's game all day. I'm pretty certain I'm happy making that call. Now we've got a fight on our hands, and a fight on our hands where it looks like Beasts of Chaos have got the beat down, which is not something. When I suggested the game, we laughed at the start. Hey, it's Daughters of Cain versus Beasts of Chaos, but there's a game in it here. There seems to be a game in it. Now, we could see a lot of output come out, and we could just see them all fall apart, but it's got more to do with the numbers of units left, which Beasts of Chaos keep putting on the board, than it necessarily has that who's got what left at the end.
Yeah, I agree. Blagan is clearly proving himself as a fantastic Beasts player who's using these units in the best way possible. And just it's great to watch.
It's really good. It's really good. And also a fun game of small, very small interactions. Everything that's trading here is minimal unit size, if that. Right. Like, it's minimal unit size, like, pretty much in here, apart from those, like, buffed up Enlightened units that have gone to 2. Everything else is... Oh, and the Shadowstalkers. So both players, actually, have only taken a unit above its starting size twice, which is pretty significant there. Everything else is just in its pants as you get it. And I think that's actually a really interesting conversation, especially compared to the big bricks of 20, of Blight Kings, of of Bloodstalkers that we see. We talked about, I think there's lots of people talking about, Hagnar lists with 30 Sisters of Slaughter or even 30 Witch Elves. Those are still very relevant and very viable. They play very differently. And so, they're just different lists playing different ways, and it's so fun to watch. This is super fun Warhammer. I'm really enjoying this. The Tuskor Chariot did just activate and do no damage, which is of no surprise to anyone.
Right, yeah, sounds on point. Like, again, you use it... Summoned Tuskor Chariots aren't there to actually fight or do damage. They're there to go pin units and, be existing. Like, that's why they're a good summon, because they guys, as I said earlier, they've got that built-in reroll to charge. Sure, every so often you'll get a couple pips of damage out of them. It's fine. It's cool when it happens, but it's not why you actually it's not why you summoned the thing, right? No,
not at all. Not at all. It's just in there to do what it's doing now, and also to drag the army apart, because in the next beast turn, there's happily another unit in there. Don't forget, both of these 2 units activating these unit of Shadowstalkers are summons. The Centaur unit at the top right, and also the Tuskor Chariot, both summons used to pin it in. And also a plan that must have been like that was a long-term plan. That was turn 1. I'm summoning these in the top right-hand corner, and I'm going to wait, and I'm going to go around the back of the army. Blagan obviously recognizing that Benjamin was keeping those Shadowstalkers back for whenever he wanted to teleport them somewhere else on the field. So being able to grab them, that was a premeditated play, I would say, and I think it's nice to see it play out for him and not get doubled into, which I think is quite key.
Yeah, I agree. And if what it does is it's really restricting out their options. It's forcing them to say, okay, do you want to teleport away, or do you want to stay and clean both of these units up with shooting? Like, undoubtedly, that back unit of Shadowstalkers could just clean those units off probably with shooting and its other nonsense, right?
Yeah.
Next turn. That's not an issue. But if you do that, you're just wasting all this time with you've got this hammer unit killing nothing, right? Nothing of value. And because, as you said, they're both summons, they're both just. And there we go. The second avatar dead. Like, that was more or less a foregone conclusion. 5 enlightened, with their rerolls. Avatars are cool. They're not that cool. So that was.
I mean, like, I didn't mind what they did though. Like, yeah. Imagine if he'd have put two into one direction, which maybe could have been a play, although he obviously deployed them intentionally to throw them up into those kind of like spheres of influence, and he deployed them in that way. But just having them in the list, 130 points, significant, I would say. Like, a significant unit. And other armies would be like, I would take that all day. Like, I want that to be in my army, I'd say.
Yes, you're right that the worst unit in Daughters of Cain, at the way they're currently pointed, is something most armies would kill for. You are correct.
Yeah. Right, so there's still some ongoing combat, some little bits here and there. The Shadowstalkers are activating. I think they've activated into the Chariot, and he's only lost a wound. It was pretty rough. Oliver Dempsey in the chat, I don't see how Daughters can come back at this point. Honestly, it's going to take a lot. I would say that the Shrines are going to have to get into some fights and get rid of some of these units. Not forgetting that the Bloodrack Shrine is going to do the Care Bear Stare, and we're going to see a lot of those Bestigor shot out very, very quickly, I would say. And also, there's still a fair amount of output from this army. Fair amount of output, yeah. So
there's definitely still options. He's just got, Ben needs to get out of this castle and start using his pieces to their best potential effect, right? Like, he's got to get to a place where he's actually doing some work. Start moving out, use the actual he needs to be using the Medusa on Shrine to go stare down, swing her over, start staring down the Bestigor. Get that Hag Queen out there, get her charging something, get her fighting, get your other units up and doing something, right? Like, he's got to start pushing out and maybe playing for the double, right? Like, that's what he wants to start thinking about, because he can't keep letting himself getting tied up here. The little Slaughter Queen on foot, again, get her out there and have her go chop up some Bestigor. This is a piece that could be doing something.
And it's going to need to. It's going to need to at this point. Everything's got to chip in. He has to make sure he clears everything in his back lines right now in this turn. So he's still got Daughters of Cain have still got their turn to come. He's got to clear everything, and then on the priority roll, he needs to push really heavily into those Enlightened. And once he's done that, that's game. It's so fragile. The balance of power here is knife edge. It's like a seesaw. It can just and it flipped already once, or more importantly, it maintained because the priority roll went to Beast of Chaos at the beginning of turn 2. Had it just gone priority to Daughters of Cain, this was all over. This was a snowball straight down the hill. But it's on a real knife edge. It's super balancing. Plague's got to do everything in his power. It's like putting your finger in a dam. He's just I've just got to hold on. I've just got to stop this. But as soon as that's out, it's going to be all over, I think, here. But he's doing a good job of whittling these units down, ultimately. Doing a really good job. And that is the end of the Battle Shock phase. We have... What ran, sorry? Nothing ran. Nothing ran from here, so that is the end of the turn. So that's 12 points for Beast of Chaos going into Daughters of Cain, Hagnar, turn 2. Vince, what are you doing in this situation? How are you getting yourself out of this?
So you've got a lot of damage potential, right?
Yeah.
And what I'm thinking in my head at this point is, one, I've got to get rid of this stupid Geminid spell, so I'm not going to forget that. Okay, I hope Ben doesn't forget that. You've got an extra caster, pull this thing the heck off the table, right? Just get rid of this dumb thing.
So he's cast Mind Razor, so which means he's not which means he is not going to be unbinding Geminids unless they don't mind, because that's always done at the start of the hero phase.
Right.
And so that's done and that's out. So then, but Mind Razor has been cast with the Geminids. With the Centaur attempting to stop the spell, but unfortunately not having the magical ability to do so. And so, who have we seen Mind Razor go on? Surely the Shadow Stalkers. I think that's probably right. Yeah. Apparently, Vince, people could hear your brain stop when Mind Razor was cast.
Well, that's good. I love. First of all, I love that it got cast. Second of all, he put it on the Hag Queen itself, which is exactly what I would put it on. By the way, that is the correct choice. Like, get that Hag Queen out and get her doing something. That piece, like the Hag Queen on Cauldron, people underestimate that thing. I actually always run a Slaughter Queen on Cauldron, and which you can do now because they're all so ridiculously cheap. You can get the Slaughter Queen on Cauldron for cheaper than you used to be able to get the Hag Queen on Cauldron, so why not? And everything's cheap. In the Daughters of Cain world, it's a discount sale, and everything's got to go. But the Slaughter Queen or the Hag Queen on Cauldron, they are brutal pieces in combat that if Mind Razored can roll in and just hit like trucks. And don't forget, right now, the Daughters Army is operating as though it's turn 3, right? Meaning they've got their reroll ones to hit. That's up right now. Okay, that's just now the army does that, right? All the statues are obviously active. Good to go there. You don't need to worry about that. So the statue on the back of the Hag Queen, that's active. Don't forget, there's still one more sneaky avatar hiding on this, standing on the back of the Hag Queen's cauldron,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And what I'm doing is I'm probably pulling away or just using those 18 to just clear up the back stuff and hold my objective. Just let that be. I'm bringing the Medusa over to go deal with the Bestigor. So like I'd retreat out the 2 red bow snakes, get them the heck out of there. They're worthless. They're not doing anything. I don't care. I want the Medusa up there. I'm going to wheel her over. I'm going to stare. She and the Slaughter Queen are going to go handle the Bestigor and that last Ungor and all that nonsense. We're going that direction. The Shadow Stonkers, we're pushing them hard up. Like, if I have to retreat him, which maybe you do, I think he did push the Bestigor to within 3 of the Shadow Stonkers, which was a very smart play. As usual, Blagan being very good with the movement thing. I would be pushing them Shadow Stonkers up and trying to get them up toward that north point. Like, you've got a good range there, you've got a good movement, get them up there, get that charge off, start getting that unit fighting and doing something. And then I'm using the other bow snakes. They do have to get in there, but they've got to start moving. I'm using all my other bow snakes then, now that they're free and clear, and I'm targeting that left pack of Enlightened, and I'm just trying to weaken them, like decimate them down. I need to remove this threat at a place where I suffer no punch back. So I've still got, maybe 8 snakes or something like that, 9 snakes. I don't know how many exactly there are left after the mortal wounds from the Geminids, but I'm putting all those into the Enlightened. Now I've dealt with all the threats. I'm pushing out. I still have my home point secured with my 18 Stonkers. And the Medusa is still easily giving me the bonus here. She's still easily supporting the Shadow Stonkers, the back unit of Shadow Stonkers. And now I'm out. I'm threatening and I'm moving, right? And this is and I'm removing, most importantly, his major pieces, because you would weaken the left unit of Enlightened. You threaten the top unit of Enlightened. If you get in the charge, say goodnight, Gracie. It's over, right? That's it. You're gonna deal with them, especially if somebody like those Stonkers buffed up or the Hags, because the Stonkers have the Witch Brew on them right now.
Yeah.
So
a lot of buffs and debuffs across the army at the moment. Gemini is doing most of the work. And,
oh my gosh!
There's so many tokens. There's so much happening here. And one of the things that I think is important to note, with Gemini's not gone, that priority roll is going to be significant. So if it, like we talked about on that swing balance, if it does end up going to Daughters of Cain on the double, which I think probably is still game over, those Geminids are still going to do work across the army. The army is not as good as it was. Just because of that one cast. And then now with it not being unbound, it's going to come into play next turn. There's just no question about it. So priority roll goes either way. And I think it's going to be actually quite hard for Daughters of Cain to ostracize themselves away from that spell. They could just elect to not move it, just keep it exactly where it is. But but it's in a tough spot. So like Blagan's given himself at least some options if the priority doesn't go towards him, because if the priority doesn't go to you in the next turn, you get to move the first endless spell. Gemini's being the only endless spell on the board, that'll be the first one that gets moved, and I think that's quite key. So the Gemini's located there. Right, so this Hag Queen has moved, Vince, just like you said, with the Avatar right on top, and it's going to need a 7-inch charge to get into those Enlightened.
Right, but it's got that +2.
Yeah.
So that's a roll I'm banking a command point to make. Like, I'm making that roll. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm doing. It looks like either Morgwaith or the Slaughter Queen is moving out. I'm glad to see, or maybe both of them. I'm glad to see him finally remembering that those two are actually killy pieces that can go do work. Like, I think people often, I've run Slaughter Queens on foot quite a bit. I often find them just kind of an interesting, useful little piece that people underestimate. And if you self-buff them, remember, Rob, Slaughter Queens on foot have a Doom Dance prayer. This is something that most people, I like. Again, there's so many weird tricks in this army. Do you know what Doom Dance does?
Please
on
tell
the Slaughter Queen? It lets them fight twice. Okay.
It does. It's really quite good, especially with the buff, like with Mind Razor on. That's a lot of output coming out of the Queen, right?
Yeah, the little Slaughter Queen on foot can go fight twice. Like, that tiny little 32 mil base. You and I have talked many, many times about the idea of power per square inch, right? You know, it's great. Like, one of the reasons the Corn Dragon is so bad is because, yes, he does a lot of damage, but he's huge, right? Like,
and
too big.
only counts as one.
It only counts as one. Power per square inch matters, right? And little Slaughter Queens actually punch way above their weight for something on a tiny 32 mil base, right? So I love that piece and how it can just sort of explode in a weird way. And against like a unit of Bestigors, it's a great unit to go in and actually do work. Ben taking the Shadowstalkers out with a big teleport.
Moving them right towards the Dragon Ogre Shaggoth in there, and giving him that. Making sure he can get in. It's gonna be a tight squeeze to get them all in effectively. Not forgetting the Bestigor need to move out the way as well, and looking to grab that top up there and outscore. If you can kill Dragon Ogre and also outscore on that objective, it's going to put him on the points, like bring him back into the points, which we talked about. He desperately needs to do that. But it means he isn't going to be affecting that unit of Enlightened, which makes me feel like the Bloodstalkers that we're seeing here, they are going to be shooting. I'm pretty certain they're in range. Just double check. I feel like we're going to see most of those shots from the Bloodstalkers go into the Enlightened to also whittle. And again, just that projection of power, 24-inch range shooting, so vital. You think, like, the difference between 18, 24, like, I know is clearly 6 inches, but like in game terms, very significant. Danger close is pretty much what I describe 18 inches as. If you've got a good shooting unit and you're 18 inches, you're right next to the melee. Like, you're too close.
Right.
Like, it's too close. 24 gives you that little bit of breathing room, I think, where you can really start to project power. And if you actually look from this small area in the center near this objective, he's got the ability to push to the top or the left. And they also move fast. They move fast. Like, so he's got the ability to move around and where he wants to put that power. And that's really useful, especially from his battle line unit. 130 points, 10 wounds. Everything a Blitzbarb archer should be.
Yes, I'm sorry. Colonel Cabbage corrected me. I'm sorry. The Slaughter Queen's on a 25 mil base. Even better. Thank you, Colonel Cabbage. You're absolutely right. I'll tell you right now, that teleport's actually a pretty bold move. He's going for my strategy, which I wasn't expecting out of Ben Sava, which my strategy is just roll 9s. It's how you win the game. And so I was not expecting him to go that hard into the paint on that, but I think in his mind, he's like, okay, I'll take these Shadowstalkers. The Shadowstalkers up front, they're going to go deal with the best score in this last Ungor. That's what he's breaking that direction. The shrine is centering up. I'm really surprised he's still holding the shrine back as carefully as he is. That's surprising to me. I would have brought a little something to deal with that back stuff, because I just want to clean up this nonsense in my backfield. You don't need a huge commit, but you need something. So I'll be interested. I'm interested to see how that works out.
So I think he's just gonna just out and out ignore it, because like when it goes in, it's gonna do nothing. Like he's underwhelmed and unimpressed. Like he cares not about the whole thing. So he's just leaving them, which like, and he's making the priority of anything that is important. And like we said, tempo and pace is against him at this point. He has to engage now. He can't allow this turn to go unanswered and then another priority go away and then him just outscore. That's significant. And he needs to push into turns 4 and 5 and make sure those points are on the board. So actually, this feels like it's more of a timing issue than it is anything else. Like he's recognizing Benjamin's played a lot of Warhammer. He's like, cool, this is the time when you score. If you don't score now, the clock just runs out on you. Because there is that Damocles sword of the points needed by turn 5 hanging above you all the time in these scenarios, and something he's very, very conscious of. So I hear what you're saying. It seems like a bold move, but I feel like it's an almost forced move. He has to engage at this point. He has to engage this early. So we've started to move into the shooting phase. The Bloodrack Shrine has only done 3 mortal wounds into the Bestigor. I had expected it to do more. And we've Wow, perfect. I called it, Vince. The Bloodstalkers, the green.
Hold on,
and
that
the yellow.
was my call, number 1.
I called it number 1.
When you asked me what is everybody gonna do, I said all those remaining Bloodstalkers fire into the 5 Enlightened. Thank you very much. Let's go to the videotape, all right?
I'm willing to accept we both did it, like independently. That's what I'm going. Like the invention of the pyramids. Wait, triangles are strong shapes. Yeah, both of those.
It's absolutely the play. I mean, it doesn't take, like, in this case, I'll say it doesn't take either of us to be geniuses to know that, like, you take your ultimate power projection units and you fire into his hammer that needs to be in melee to hurt you, right? Like, I would call that a fairly obvious play.
Yeah, I think very obvious. So
and then
it doesn't look. It doesn't look like he's done super well so far. He's only taken out 1 of the Enlightened. I'm sure he would have been very happy to have lifted 2 out of that unit eventually. I think he almost needs to at this point, because again, those Shadow Stonkers can't really handle this counter charge from those Enlightened if they go down. Also looking for that charge into the Shaggoth. I'm pretty comfortable that they're going to be fine at this top. That Hag Queen and the Cauldron into the Enlightened is going to be safe, but we'll see. There's some really important dice rolls. A bad roll from the Hag Queen on Cauldron of Blood looking for the charge and also a bad roll from the Shadow Stonkers, and he's just going to be left in the wind at this point. It's going to be a really tough to come back from. So there's some real pressure applied to Benjamin here, but if he gets these charges off, he gets the priority roll. It's just that balance that we're on right now, that seesaw of destruction is flipping all the way over to him, and so he's definitely got that charge. That's all the way.
Yeah, that's what he wanted to see right there. There are 2 big charges. He wanted to land that long charge, be able to bring the shaman into combat in the top right, and he did, which is great. And the impact hitting off the shaman like he just did. I don't know, Rob, if you need to move your view. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm already done it. 2+.
Oh, okay.
2+ to do that, and then you end up doing D3 mortal wounds. So yeah, he's taken out the shaman without even needing to activate, which is a huge point swing.
Right, absolutely.
Oh, okay. And we've got another charge at the bottom. We have a Medusa charge into the chariot. Pin up that chariot at the bottom right-hand corner. But the Shadow Stalkers failed their charge. He's got a half win there. That's pretty important. I think probably more important that the Cauldron charged in, I'm going to say. I think that's important because he's cleared up that top part quite significantly.
It puts the Shadow Stonkers needing the double. I'll tell you right now, I'm not sure if there was a way he could have arranged it, but it would have been pretty nice if he could have had one of the two little characters run all the way around and be like within 6 inches of the edge of that Shadow Stonker on the bottom. Like, I think from where they started, if you had done a 12-inch run, you probably could have gotten to within 6 of the edge of the Shadow Stonkers, and I would have done that just to give insurance, to give myself a reroll on the 9, because you really wanted to land that Shadow Stonker charge.
Really, really did. Like, very significant. But I think his CP was already taken into account as well. We have seen your buffed up Slaughter Queen on foot, 25 mil of raw destruction. She's in. The charge is on, up against those Bestigor. But the first activation that we're seeing is the Slaughter Queen on the Cauldron of Blood. We've already seen 2 Enlightened lifting off the board. We're probably going to see the other 2 go down for no return.
She's mind razored right now. She's got the Witch Brew on her. There's no world where she walks away from this, is my honest answer.
They're gone. They are absolutely gone. They're all gone. So that is phenomenal work there from which is interesting. Almost you think, is this a buff piece? And you're like, well, no, not in this situation. That absolutely flawed those unit of Enlightened.
I think what you've got to understand is everything in the Daughter's army is a hammer, right? Like, you open up their toolbox and it's just full of hammers, right? Oh, did you need to bring anything else? Nope. I just brought hammers.
All I'm here to do is break down walls. That's it. I've got no other jobs to do today. The Bestigor are piling in now. It's true. It's actually true. So, yeah, the Bestigor are piling in. They're attacking the Bloodstalkers right now, looking to take out Morgweith the Bloodied, looking to take out those Bloodstalkers as well. The Slaughter Queen, I think, has been dragged into the fight there. 1.5, 2 inches. Yeah, she's been dragged into the fight. The Slaughter Queen on foot. So that's something to be aware of. I imagine looking to take out the Bloodstalkers more than Morgweith, but we'll see. Morgweith, Vince, cheap beyond measure is what I'm going to say. 80 points for the character and then a bonus unit. I take that all day, right?
Yeah, man. It's yes. She's maybe just a bit too cheap, and by a bit, I mean she's too cheap. So we just got the note that there's 1 hour left. So not a lot of time, honestly. And I do not know what her wound pass-off range is for Morgweith. I imagine she's got to be closer. I would think she's like most wound transfers, she's got to be pretty close. Yeah,
it's 3 inches. She's got to be really close. An hour left. I think this game will be decided before then, because as we've said, like this is probably the priority. If Blagan and the Beast of Chaos get the priority into turn 3, they've got some options, and they're not quite on the points like advantage that they had previously. They're doing pretty well. I mean, that unit of Centaur can run over and just grab that objective off the Hag Queen. Doesn't have to engage with the unit. Can just go grab it. That'll score him a point. Won't give him a bonus point. It'll score him the point, and then it's whether or not. And then probably what I would do is take the Enlightened and just smash the Shadow Stalkers to pieces. Just grab them off the board, and then probably the points are too far gone at that point. Probably. However, and then you're taking out the ability to teleport and whip around and cause you any major issues. Not forgetting that there are still some life takers off the board right now, so they could come in late game and threaten that objective. But Benjamin can still score really heavily in turns 3, 4, and 5. And so I'm not sure if Blagan has pulled away enough, because all of those points that are on the board are available right now for Benjamin, and he's also going to get bonus points for taking the objectives back off of Blagan. So not only with a hero, but he's going to score 3 for that top right objective right now. 3 just for doing that with that hero. And he can go and do that again with the Hag Queen on Cauldron of Blood. Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. So the Centaur piling in now, looking to attack into Morgweith Bloodied little unit. right here. And then the Bestigor, when they attacked, they took the Bloodstalker unit down by another 1, and the other one's still alive, though, and they only did 2 wounds to Morgweth the Bloodied. So still not dead. Still not dead.
Not super surprising, honestly. My answer is, I still think this was not a great turn for the daughters. Honest answer. Okay?
Yeah.
Like, yes, we got rid of the chariot, which is good, right? Like, that's cool. Glad to see we got that done. The Centaur is still going to be there a little bit, which is fine. They're just kind of around. But we didn't land that needed charge. We're going to be up to getting 5 points this turn, right? Because he'll get the 1 for taking it, the 1 for base, and then the 1 for having a leader. So that's a much better position to be in, so we'll be on 12-7.
Mm-hmm.
But if he didn't kill out as many Enlightened as he needed, the Bestigor is still there in the fight at the end. Like, he might lose another 1 or something to Battle Shock, maybe 2. But it's just honestly a rough play overall for the daughters, who are pretty pulled apart right now. And he's got that whole unit of Shadow Stonkers just down there doing nothing. And if Blagan gets the turn, what I'm doing is I'm probably bringing those Ungor. I'm going to see if I can run them down and get them in the way. Maybe get a new summon off the side, try to pin those Shadow Stonkers on the side. Like, I'd take all those Ungor that are in the left sort of side of the board. I do a big run on them, get them as far as I can down into the bottom left to block up the Shadow Stonkers. Bring the Shaggoth to the backside, so I've got that point in control. If I've got enough points, I bring a Chariot on from the left side, and I pin those Shadow Stonkers that are sitting there doing nothing right on their left side with another Chariot charge, right? And then that really puts them in a rough position where it's like, okay, now you're not going to retreat and take the point because I've brought down the Ungor, so you can't just walk up onto it. You can't charge me. You can't fight anything of value. You got to teleport again, but where are you going to teleport? Right?
Yeah,
so,
where? Yeah, like, where are you going to go? I wouldn't mind just taking the unit off. We are seeing a lot of Bestigor go down, though, unfortunately, to the Slaughter Queen. So you killed 5.
Well, there you go. As I said, if the Slaughter Queen's in the fight, she's ready to do the work. That lady.
Oh, just two from the Slaughter Queen, actually. But yeah, still very viable. She killed 4. That's pretty good for Bestigor. Oh, and Morgwade's still to swing. So those Bestigor probably not long for this world. They're running to Battle Shock. They're in a tough spot. Also gives a direct line for both the Slaughter Queen or Morgwath to run onto this bottom left-hand objective and get on there, which will get them a bonus point as well if they're able to do so. But bodies on the board, it's pretty rough looking for Daughters of Cain. Like, yeah, they've got some threats. There's the 2 units of Shadow Stalkers, but I wouldn't mind just charging and into the unit of Shadow Stalkers at the bottom, just clearing them off the board. He really doesn't have a lot of tools left then. Like to drop places. There is a unit of Shadow Stalkers at the front. I don't think he's anything he can do about that. Here we go. 12-7.
Let me just say, we're about to get that turn roll up. I just want to say, I knew the Slaughter Queen could do it. I believed in her the whole time. I love Slaughter Queens. I'm serious.
Daughters of Cain have rolled a 6, and Beast of Chaos have rolled a 1. That is as soon as I saw Blagan roll the 1, I was like, that's definitely going to be a 6 for Daughters of Cain. That's rough. I know. We're all kind of rooting for Beast of Chaos, right? Because they're meant to lose this game. Like, the math says, like, it's a really old book. The win rate is really low. Both players still really good, but they're mismatched in quality and in pointing, in the war scrolls, in everything, in all ways. I mean, let's look at it. Like, ultimately, the Beast of Chaos army has got a unit that's better if it's fought second, which normally in a fight, everything I've learned in life, you want to fight first, not second, if you can help it most times. So they're already up against it in this situation, and wildly overcosted compared to the Daughters of Cain. He does get to move the Geminids, though. That is a good little bonus, which we talked about earlier. But yeah, this is going to look really strong for Daughters of Cain now. Maybe not
This is
impossible, but
no,
probably
but this is what they wanted. This puts them back in pole position because now those Stonkers can just move the other Ungor out of position, right? Like he can really like capitalize and secure his gains from last round, right? This is like Ben can absolutely capitalize on this hard.
Yeah, and he is going to capitalise, I think, on this significantly. Those 2 units of Bloodstalkers who didn't do particularly good shooting last turn into those Enlightened are going to be able to get rid of them, and they're really the only threat left on the board at this point. Those 4 Enlightened. The Shaggoth is obviously there, but mainly in spirit rather than any actual effectiveness. The Mortal Wounds coming in from the Geminids. I don't think it killed the Bloodstalker, which is weird, or maybe they're still rolling it out. At the bottom. Oh. So 2 more Bloodstalkers went down, 1 from each unit, and then 3 more Shadowstalkers. Those Geminids doing some incredible work over that turn. But I'm sure Blagan...
Scary spell.
Yeah, super
scary spell.
I'm sure Blagan would have been happier with the priority roll than moving the Geminids, to be honest. And the last Bloodstalker has gone down. So he has dropped all the Bloodstalkers down, but it's just going to be... I think that those Enlightened have got a target on them so big and so wide that they're not going to be able to miss. And also the Hag Queen on Cauldron, if she just leaves her objective and just goes and smashes the Centaur over there as well, that pushes all that pressure onto that back objective. So I think Benjamin can pretty much clear the board at this point on this turn. That's what I think, Vince. I don't know about you. I don't think there's much chance for the Beast of Chaos this turn.
Well, I mean, part of the problem is she can't get her run and charge off bonus again this round, right? Because that spell isn't going to be available to her since the casters are out of range for it, I think. I believe they're both out of range.
Yep.
And remember, that thing only moves 6 inches. So it doesn't really go that far, right? Like the +2 to run and charge thing makes a big difference to a Cauldron. It's hard for a Cauldron to go out and operate on its own on its slow movement rate. Now what I'll say is there was a lot of different like those Geminids did a lot of work. Oop.
It's okay. They're winding back time.
Oh, got it. Okay. I see. Now I understand what's going on. I was gonna say I didn't think she died, but I mean those Geminids did a lot of work in there, cleaning up the red Shadow Stalker, right? Putting more wounds on Morgwaith. Like there's just you're right that the pieces are coming down. The problem is Ben can now put that big unit of Shadow Stalkers that's still basically at max power. I think they lost like 1 model or something so far. Those can now come into the mix. Right, he can bring those straight up. That's an easy charge into the Shaggoth right there because they're going to be at a 3-inch charge since they set up 9 inches away from him. That's a slam dunk, Rooney. They'd lift that Shaggoth like it's not a problem. They lift him like a bag of groceries, and then that's it. Like at that point, if they nail the long charge and can get into the Enlightened as well, it's a bad day. It's a bad day all around. That's not even counting if he shoots at the Enlightened as well or whatever happens, right?
Yeah, of course. I think just in combat there's an issue, and like we talked about, those Bloodstalkers being able to do that output also at range is going to mean he can really clear the board. And it's been super interesting as a game. If you guys have just joined us, I'll quickly run you through what happened over the course of this battle. First turn was taken by the Beasts of Chaos. They threw a unit of 3 Enlightened from their objective at the top left-hand corner into the middle where Benjamin's army is currently placed. So they charged in. They hit a screen. They charged some Ungor in as well, but mainly so that they could attack over the top. They killed a unit of Heartrenders, Canary Heartrenders that was there, and then they also took out some Shadow Stalkers. In the smackback, nothing really happened, and that was pretty much the end of the turn, with a unit of 6 Enlightened moving up the top, and another unit of 6 Enlightened moving, staying kind of in the center to threaten the middle of the board. And then on Daughters of Cain first turn, they cleared out the Enlightened in the shooting and magic phase, got them off the board, so the unit of 3 that had been engaged. And then And that was pretty much what they did. That's pretty much what they did. They did some shots up at the top. And the two avatars. There were two avatars on foot, and each one of those went off like a missile into the top and left-hand objective. They went up there. They got the charges off. They were unable to kill the Shaggoth, which was one charge, and they killed two of the 6 enlightened at the top. Then we went into priority. Beast of Case won it. And then they were able to clear both units of the avatars with the enlightened and get them off the board. And then a unit of summoned Centaur from turn 1 ran around the back, and with a unit of summoned Tuskarl Chariot charged into the back, as well as a unit of Bestigor that come on from reserve into a unit of Stalkers. Looked like a lot of pressure going in there. All of that stuff was pretty much cleared off in the last Daughters of Cain turn, and that brings us up to now, the priority roll, which is gone to Daughters of Cain at the top of 3, and unfortunately is looking very, very tough for the Beast of Chaos. But
it is
very tough.
Where are you putting your life takers? Remember, you still got those 5 life takers hiding back there in the skies. So if you're, I know where I'd put them, but Rob, where are you dropping your life takers?
I don't mind at this point because I've won. But I'll put them towards that back top left-hand objective, near the Centaur at the top. And the reason that
100%.
I'll do that is I just want to put pressure everywhere. And if I can get some bonus points out of it, I get the bonus points, and I'm good. Although semi-tempted to take out these Ungor. I know that seems like irrelevant, but the objective is the right decision, of course. Like to go on.
You're exactly right. You and I are simpatico on this. There's an easy 9-inch drop off those Centaur on the back side there. If you land that charge, hey, great. Chances are you lift those Centaur without any effort. You get to take the point for free, right? Because then all that's left is the shaman to hold the point, and you could then float and block the little Ungor out from actually being able to get in, right? Because remember, the life takers can float after they fight. Right, so on a 4-up, if you float, I would just float around the edge of the herdstone, so that way the Ungor literally can't get and take the point without fighting. They can't body block me off the point, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're right, it's just pressure everywhere, and that's suddenly what the Beast player has found themselves in, right?
Oof. Okay. Shadowstalkers with Witchbrew on them, rerolls to wound. They're doing good. Rerolls to wound also on the Hag Queen. Looking for some additional output. And then Mogwith is also powered up her sword as well. I do like the Cauldron, sorry. The Hag Queen on the Cauldron, not Mogwith. So that defeats the next point I was going on to, so it doesn't matter.
A lot of people, Rob, bang on the built-in prayers of the Slaughter and Hag Queen, because like one of their built-in prayers is just like, oh, it turns your blade from damage 1 to damage D3 or whatever, right?
Yep.
And people are like, oh, that's not very good. And in my head, what I think is, no, I'd take D3 damage everywhere. Like most armies, I love that in this army, something that makes you do D3 damage is like, that's all right. No, I'll take it. It's a free thing. You know what I want? More free things that are just more damage in an already damaging army. As I said, the box is only full of hammers, right?
Yeah. You want, everything is a threat in this army. And also when you put it into Hagnar, it's not even everything is a threat, and then there are some like built-in like survivability issues. It's also like big bruiser units, I think would be a good descriptor, right? They can fight and they can tank. Like, normally we try and talk about both, but they're just bruisers. They're just willing to just get into the fight, just fight it out all day. That's what they're looking to do, and they don't mind. Like, which is a weird way for the army to work. And interesting that Benjamin didn't, like, double down on that. When you have something like 30 Witch Elves or 30 Sisters of Slaughter, that's just so much to get through. It's such a phenomenally scary brick. But in this situation, he's given himself loads of options to trade with across the board. And in doing so, and it's been able to like play with Blagan. But I also think that ultimately, that also gave Blagan a room to play. I think that some of these units that we've seen here, even like, maybe a unit of 6 Enlightened just go into a unit of Witch Elves, they're probably just bouncing off all day, every day.
Yeah.
So this is a fun matchup because Benjamin's list has made it fun. I would say, and has given him more tools and options. So he's given himself, but he's also given himself against some other armies more options. So it really does depend what he's playing against. And I do find those DPS check armies like we saw with the Blight Kings, and also, I don't know if you saw the list show yesterday, Vince, there's also, someone's brought 3 units of 30 Uruk Savage Boys, and then 2 lots of 30 Uruk Savage Ara Boys. It's
so they've got like 240 wounds.
It's like 300 wounds.
Good Lord. Yeah, that's a DPS check right there.
It's like welcome to the party.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's beautiful. This right here. So what I want to talk about some things we just saw. Okay, which is that first of all, everybody, when the reason the teleport on the Shadow Stonkers is so powerful is because of stuff like what just happened. Okay, he had that little unit out there. Could he have moved forward and threatened the Enlightened? Sure, like maybe that's a play. But at the same time, Ben says, I don't need to do that. I can just go reinforce this point. Boop, boop. Just pick up your unit, set it back down over there. It's an unthreatened point, and now that point's secure. Right? He can't retreat the 2 remaining Centaur or something if they would happen to live because of bad rolls from Morgwaith's crew. They're just there. They're just where you need to be. I think a lot of people are like, well, the teleport isn't that good, because you got to be 9 inches away and their bow's only 6 inches. And I'm like, no, teleporting a unit is always good because the fact that you can just late in the game with whatever you've got left, be like, hey, this unit is over here. It's over there now. Done.
Yeah. It's so functional. It's so functional, and it gives you so many options. And it's also not. We've seen some fun clutch rolls in live coverage. Someone needed a 4 on a run roll to take an objective to win the game. That's a dice roll. They're not near anyone who can give them a CP and turn it into a 6. That's a dice roll. A teleport is, I do a thing. I'm there.
Right.
I'm ready.
Right.
Like, it's a guarantee. It's really, really good. Really, really good. And on such an incredibly cheap unit. 100 points for that unit. And here we go. The unit of Life Takers finally on the board as well. Looking to threaten into this Centaur unit at the back, and this is the dominating threat now. It would have been so interesting to see how this turn would have gone had the priority gone to Beasts of Chaos, but not overwhelming. I wouldn't say it's the priority roll really that was the issue. It's not like the double turn, Vince. I wouldn't say that. Like, if you'd like describe the double turn to people, the dreaded double turn, I don't think that's what we saw at all. I think it was just positional play. I get to go next. Huge. Really was the situation.
Ben set himself up well for it, right? Like he took the risk with the 2 into so the way I think about double turning people is your double turn from 1 into 2 is something that people often play for, but is actually kind of the weak double turn given how you're normally applying forces and what they have left. But if you can double 2 into 3, that's when you win the game, right? So actually going second in turn 2 and setting yourself up for that 2 into 3 double is usually where you can decide the game. Oftentimes, if I have the chance for the double at the top of 2, unless I think literally like if I'm playing my Iron Jaws and I'm going to scream in with some 40 damage Mega Boss on Maw Crush and blow their army off the table, I'll give it away. Right, it's better to give it away and play for the double 2 into 3 because that's often where you can win, than it is to get the double from 1 into 2.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and also I love that Red Hot Chili Peppers song. It's just a great song. Like it's all.
Which Red Hot Chili Peppers song?
Give it away now.
Oh,
give it
gotcha.
away.
Okay, yes. Sorry, I have a deep and abiding hatred for the Red Hot Chili Peppers, although Flea does rule.
Really?
Yes, like Anthony Kiedis' voice just makes me want to punch him in the face, which would be stupid. He'd kill me.
Wow.
But I hate him and I hate his talking, and he seems like a perfectly nice guy, by the way. It's not. Welcome to Red Hot Chili Peppers talk. Flea is like one of the all-time greats, though. Anyways,
that's okay. I think some of the chat might turn on you under that, but that's fine. So we've just seen the shooting. The Shadow Stalkers have shot into the Dragon Ogre Shoggoth, bringing him down to 2 wounds of his remaining 10. We're now seeing the Bloodstalkers shoot off into the Zangor Enlightened right now, is what we're seeing. And last time they didn't do particularly well. They only took 1 of the 5 that were there. And I'm Blagan going to be wishing that they don't do particularly well here, because that will give him a counterpunch unit. but we'll see. We've also got a shot coming in from this unit. I can't believe this unit is still alive. Morgweith's Coven, her little squad, is still alive and on the board. A free unit, by the way. 0 points. Outrageous. And the Blood Rat Medusa. And the Medusa also shooting in and staring at them, and also being a little combat threat as well. A lot of characters. When I first saw this list, I was like, this is a lot of characters. But it's given him a lot of utility. A lot of utility to play with.
First of all, I love the response of everybody in the comments who are angry about my hatred of the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Sorry, this is just where the world is. It makes you feel better. I also hate Pearl Jam. Secondly, I would argue that Morgwaith's Coven isn't just 0 points, it's negative 20 points because she's 20 points cheaper than the regular Hag Queen. So not only do you get the Hag, but also you somehow magically get this unit at negative 20 points.
Right, so thanks to Matrix, by the way, for subscribing. Thanks very much. That's awesome of you. We have seen 3 of the Enlightened lifted in this situation. Only 1 model left. That's pretty much 1 model left with 2 wounds. That's pretty much game there. He would have hoped. Last time only taking out 1. This time taking out 2 with 3 with less Bloodstalkers. Weirdly, dice are just like that sometimes. Into the charge phase now. There's going to be some big charges. Morgwaith rolling first, looking to get into the Dragon Ogre Shaggoth. Oh no! Straight into the Enlightened. This is what, like, where you see tournament play in effect. Benjamin, like, full foot on the gas, like foot on the throat. He's like, I'm not stopping. He's like, I'm not feeling sorry for you. Everything is going in all the time. Pretty ferocious. And now, now we see the Shadow Stonkers go into the Shaggoth here and do some significant damage. Vince, you're still getting rolled in the chat about Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Well, and Pearl Jam. Like, I knew I was going to get people going there. At any rate, the sorry, I'm just laughing at it because it's so funny to me. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely an all gas, no brake situation, right? Like, I love the image here of Morgwaith just bloodied as all get out. She's got 1 wound left, right? Oh, okay, Morgwaith healed herself. Sorry, so she is back up to 4 wounds. Yes, great. Self heals. There you go. So she's she's back up and just spitting blood, running in to kill this Enlightened. The Shaggoth's ready to get dragged down. Like, this is the turn where Ben is just like, nope, we're taking this all off the table. I'm putting the opponent in the ground, right? Like, this is the daughter's play. You don't worship the god of murder to take your foot off the gas when you're ready to murder people. So there you go.
And this is, like you say, all gas, no breaks. Also a great YouTube channel, if anyone wants something fun to watch. Is
top notch. That I rate highly.
The life takers failed the charge, unfortunately. So did not get that off. So the Shaggoth going down, life takers not there. But this is all over. This is all over now because there's not only are there no threats, there's what all the Beast of Chaos players like to describe their whole army as chaff. It's just chaff. Sent to gore chaff, ungore chaff. And it really felt like they didn't have a lot of stuff to start with. Like, the difference between those ungore who are really there and do nothing versus the 50 points more that you spend, and you end up with those Bloodstalkers who are just so effective in the game, or the 20 points more. The difference between Ungor being 80 points and Shadow Stalkers being 100 points is worlds apart. I don't really know how else to describe that. Like, different planets. So I think a fair disparity in the book. But Blagan's played a smashing game, and Benjamin has too. It's been really a delight to watch.
He really has. I mean, I think Blagan shouldn't, like I said, he made one small mistake early. I don't feel like, and it cost him some, but not incredibly. And I really do think, though, that he's done an excellent job. You think about the play with the Centaurs, setting them up early, bringing them in, knowing exactly what he was going to do, where he was going to go, blocking off options. Like, in the end, just the hitting power of the Daughters of Cain in this. Like, Ben is playing such a shooting heavy army, right? Which is crazy to think. The Shaggoth picking up five. The Shaggoth picking up five Shadow Stalkers there. That's a great way to go down fighting. He went down swinging. I'm proud of him. Let me say that. He's already lost the objective. He's got 2 wounds left. He's definitely dead, but that's okay. he took some with him, and I say that's a good move there. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you, Shaggoth. I'm proud of you, son.
Yeah, you're doing so average to middling. They're so unbelievable.
6 total he's got down now. Well done, Shaggoth. He
like
comes through in the clutch
Alapex.
when he's about to die.
He's like an Alapex in every way, but worse. And more points.
Look, don't you be mean to the Shaggoth, okay? He's fine. He needs to come down maybe a few points or get a slightly better war scroll. Our fix for him was actually just make his axe a little more scary. 7 Shadow Stonkers, Rob. That Shaggoth has earned his points, okay? He's 7 Shadow Stonkers he brought down.
What actually happened in this match was an Avatar of Cain charged him, did some wounds to him. The Shaggoth ran away after that. He was like, "I'm not messing with this," and he just ran off. That's what he's done. I'm unimpressed. Is how I'm going to put it. And now he's dead.
Look, that's fine, but my point is he went down like a fighter, and I'm proud of him.
He was a champ. He tried really, really hard. So yeah, I at least respect that. Can we talk about this little moment? The Dragon Ogre Shaggoth dying, and the 2 Slaughter Queens just eyeballing the center, just staring, screaming, like cheering them on. Murder it! Murder it! It's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's the end of that turn, and that brings 14 points. 14 points sorted out there for Daughters of Cain. That puts them in a dominant lead. BTK still have to have their turn 3, but they've got nothing to do.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. It's all over but the crying at this point, right? I mean, you've got basically nothing left. You're going to summon... the Centaur in the bottom that should have died. They just forgot to attack him. But really, I think what happened is the Centaur's like, whoa, look. How about I just hang out with you guys? Like, what if we're just friends now?
I could be into murder as long as you don't murder me.
We're over here. Yeah, we're way in the corner. No one's paying attention to us, and I've got booze. What if instead of fighting, we just get drunk? I think that's the conversation that happened down there, and that's why that Centaur is still alive, right? I mean, he has booze. It's written on his war scroll, literally. So there you go.
He needs to just use it. I think it's interesting. Blagan looking in this situation. We're looking for what we always call an out. How do I get out of this situation? How do I get myself back in the game? I need an out or I need an in, and there's none available. It's just none.
No. I mean, if I'm Blagan, my honest answer is I'm reaching across the table and shaking hands.
Yeah, I like but what I mean is he's not. He hasn't done that, and he's looking. He's like, okay, what am I doing in this situation? How am I changing? How do I change my stars in this situation? And I'm not sure that there's going to be any options to do so. Yeah, this is it. He's got nothing. What can he do?
Yeah.
He's got 5 summoning points. Yeah.
He can get a cockatrice.
For God's sakes. You hate them, though. So, yeah.
Oh, no. I want to know where this weird slander started. I love cockatrices. I made fun of Adam's list.
How dare you come in here, call me Tory Rob once, yeah, and describe people as slanderous, yeah? You, sir, a slanderer number 1 is what I'll describe you as.
I absolutely made fun of Adam's list as not a real list because the 16 cockatrice spam is not a real list. I don't care that he owns the models. It's not a real list. I'm sorry. That's just the way the world is.
It's true. Two
Uh,
people do own the list, but
it's a hilarious skew spam joke list, but it's not a real list.
well, I
That's
wonder how
American.
many people. I wonder how many people own the 16 cockatrice list versus own the Cord Dragon list. I feel it's the same number, like or very
It's
close.
well, it's probably not that far off. You're not wrong. I mean, here's what I'll say if you want in Adam's favor. The cockatrice spam list is more real than the Legions of Asgore now. So there you go. Take that.
Heartbreak, but don't worry about it. Don't you worry. Ben Curry plays two armies. He plays Daughters of Cain and Chaos Dwarfs. So Chaos Dwarfs, when they come out in plastic, are gonna be bananas. Get ready. I'm so happy about that. It's gonna be good.
They would be an amazing army to redesign. I'll say, like they do have, it's cool stuff. But I think he's doing when we, thinking back on this game, the best. Oh, he did. Did he summon a cockatrice? Amazing.
They've summoned Has he summoned a cockatrice?
He did. It's back there. I can see it. He's over in the corner. He's in the bottom left corner. He's hiding kind of by that tree, way bottom left.
That's actually a good
there
play.
He is.
That's D6 mortal wounds to go and take this objective in the bottom left-hand corner. Look up.
He's going strong. You bring in the cockatrice, you get your shot off on the 4+, you do D6 mortals, you charge him in on the charge. The cockatrice makes a bunch of attacks because he doubles his little claw screechy attacks, right? Mm-hmm. You take that point back, and then I have no idea what else you do. I love this play from the Centaur, this like long crazy run he's going on. I don't know what his ultimate goal is there.
Charge into, I think it's to charge into the Shadow Stalkers there, and then charge them and take that objective off them. I think is what he's playing for. So that's a double, and that'll get him bonus points if he takes them back, which is a play. He'll get 2 points for each objective for taking them back. So we'll end up with 5 points, putting him 17 to 14. And still not in a great position. Oh, actually, no. If he gets the priority after, he gets an additional 3. That takes him 20 to 14, and then 20 to 14, and then everything gets wiped out, and then it's just a full score through 2 times for Benjamin. So what does he get? 8. So it doesn't work. He still loses on the points. Our sad face, but I like he's not giving up.
Absolutely, taking it to the end. The beasts are ready to bray. They're in it to win it. I dig it. But I love that he's gone in hard. It's great. The challenge here is it's also just as likely that the Ungor and the Cockatrice and the Centaurs bounce and like don't actually achieve these goals. But look, you know what? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
They do. There you go. And talking about shots you don't take or that you miss, the Cockatrice shot missed. Is what we're seeing. Did not get the 4 up for the D6 mortal wounds. I know that's pretty rough. That's why you need redundancy of another 15. That's how you make them effective. Multiple redundancies is available. Good call. Yeah, thank you. And then
I don't know how I missed it.
It's so easy to do. That's the problem. And the Cockatrice also looking for the charge as well. I'm not really fancying those Ungor Raiders' chances of surviving this particular fight unless they're supported by the Cockatrice. And then whoever it activates is going to be talking about summoning units that are good. Colonel Cabbage makes a good point. The Chimera is a good summoning piece, I would say.
Oh. Don't get me wrong. The Chimera is a fantastic summon. He can come in and breed because the Chimera is really scary when he's at max wounds. Does a lot of damage, has a D6 mortal wound breath that's basically automatic, right? And has a built-in +2 to charge. Fantastic summon. The problem is it's a 10-point summon on the list, which is crazy. If the Chimera was like 6 points or 7 points and the Cockatrice was like 4, that would probably be more reasonable. One of the ways, honestly, you could fix beasts or make them more competitive is by sort of ramping up their summoning just slightly, like kind of lowering the numbers down of what you need to summon. And it would actually make it interesting. Because thematically they're like this surround and encirclement swarm army. That's kind of the idea of the beasts, right? Thematically, classically, right? They come in from the woods, they're surrounding you, they're pinning you in. Like tactically, what's happening is they're trying to pin you in, hold you in, remove and board control you out of play, right?
Yeah.
And so lowering down some of the summoning costs so they can actually like ramp up their summoning and be getting a more potent thing every turn would actually be a valid way to make them more threatening without doing much else to the book. The book needs other things. Don't mistake what I'm saying here, right? But it would actually have a pretty sizable difference, and it would feel like pretty dead on with how they're kind of supposed to play. Right?
And also, yeah, because all the ambushing and the constant ambushing as well, and the redirection, I think is very viable as well. And also without like changing how the army like overall plays. I think ramping that summoning up, because it is annoying. Those Tuskor chariots, but taking something from an annoying Tuskor chariot and pushing into an effective Chimera, and I mean, effective is a strong word. Effective inside of that book, I think would change up the army a lot and would be really fun to see. I think ultimately,
I think a Chimera is effective. It's just not effective at the 200 and whatever nonsense points it is right now, right? If you're getting one for 0, okay, 0 is a good deal. I'll pay 0 for a Chimera.
So the Centaurs in combat have attacked this unit up here. They've killed the Shroud Queen and they've killed an additional Shadow Stalker. So now it's 3. So on that objective, it's 4 versus 5. So the Centaur can't lose a model in this setup so as to grab that objective. So that's going to be a very, very tight combat. That does mean that these Shadow Stalkers are going to be going into these Ungor, and I think these Ungor are not long. They're not brave. They really needed the Cockatrice to pull it out for them to go for do the mortal wounds and do the charge. That would have been very, very effective, and unfortunately that isn't going to work for them now. Oh, they might be immune to battle shock actually if they're wholly within. What turn are we on? Turn 3. So 18.
They're probably wholly within 18.
Yes, he's just charged him in obviously because he knows what he's doing. Wholly within 18. So they are immune to battle shock. So that's useful. It's just a bit of a shame the Cockatrice didn't end up taking them out. And he could just lose a load of them to combat, which he probably will lose a load of them to combat. Not loads, sure. But some. I really enjoy this particular Gore model that they've copy-pasted all the time. It's very cute. 8 of the 10. Okay. All right, well, that's it. That's the game. That's all over. There's just no outs. There's nothing available. Vince, it's been a pleasure. That's the game. Goes to Daughters of Cain. Very close. We'll go back to us now, and we'll have a chat about it. A clear victory for Daughters of Cain, but a close one, Vince.
Yeah, absolutely. This was a much better game than I was honestly expecting, and Blagan proved himself just an absolute great beast player here. Really put pressure on in all the ways he could, used his pieces really smartly. Absolutely great to see a beast player like operating at max efficiency. When he brought the chariot on, had the Centaur around, really had Ben felt like he pinned in his castle. And then, Ben pulled the risky play, got it out, managed to then capitalize on that. So it was, he made Ben work for it. That's, I think, in this match, maybe that's oftentimes the best you can hope for, right? When you're against the Daughters. Someone asked a little while back, I don't know if it was Colonel Cabbage or somebody, they asked, what would this have been like if the Daughters were pointed correctly? And my answer is, I don't think this game would have been any different because Ben's list is at 1950. And that's with an extra command point bot. So he's effectively running a 1900 point list. That should show you the power of Daughters right there. Yeah. Even if things went up and he lost 100 points from his list, he'd put the exact same army on the table.
He would. Yeah, it was a very interesting game, and it really did show the disparity between some of those units, both in points and effectiveness. But it also showed that if you play your heart out that it can also kind of go your way sometimes. Obviously, it didn't eventually, but it was close. And there's a whole bunch of reasons as to why, like the list, the way they were designed, Benjamin's list being far more MSUE than a brick. I feel Blagan's list would have had a real problem if it had been any kind of brick-style list. It just would have been, like it would have maybe been a little bit of a whitewash earlier than that. Also, the battle plan was also really interesting as well. I like the battle plan. You got 2 home objectives and you got 2 you battle over. Like, you have to go and grab them, or you have to trade off for them. And both of these armies want to do that trade-off game. Both of those armies want to put little units on. They want to hit you, and then they want to counter-hit you. They're looking to do that all day. They're threatening you. There's range from the Enlightened. There's movement and teleporting coming out of the Daughters of Cain. And they also ultimately can have a really strong backfield objective, and they can shoot out and project power with those Stalkers. So yeah, just super fun. Really great game. I really loved it. Vince, thank you so much for doing this with me. Vince took the time to download TTS to do this specifically for us today, so I can't thank you enough for doing so.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Hey, it's no problem. It's something I should have done a long time ago. I am a in-person Warhammer player because I spend a lot of time painting, and so I don't like playing when I don't have my little dollies on the table. But I love watching TTS games. Like, honestly, I've missed a lot of tournament Warhammer over the last year. I think we all have. I'm so excited to see tournaments starting to, post up and coming back, that we can see the bright light, the sun at the end of this tunnel. And I really thought this was a great, fun game to comment on. And it's always fun to hang out with you, Rob, and do this. So thank you, Blake, and thank you, Ben, for a really great game, for giving us something really exciting to watch. And thank you, Rob, for doing this. It's deeply appreciated.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Thanks to Benjamin and Blagan and the Twitch chat, and also to our table boss, Matt, the unsung hero of the show. He does great work for us all. You're a superstar. Now, in an hour and a half's time, roughly, we'll be back for our 3rd game of the day. Don't forget, this is only one match of 25 matches that are happening in a 50-person event for the Battle for Copenhagen, a real-world event that's gone online for today. So a whole bunch of the Danish lads are playing, and some international guests. Our man Owen Jackson won his first round. A lot of KO still in the mix. I want you to know there's still some Zinch as well, so a lot of those armies going to be presented over the next couple of days. So we've got another round today, and then we've got 2 rounds tomorrow, so do tune in for that. Vince, again, thank you very much. Matt, thank you loads. Twitch chat, I'll see you in an hour and a half, and come back then. Thanks very much, and goodbye.